To order, please. Roll call, Liz.
Councilmember Singleton.
Here.
Payne.
Present.
Campion.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Powers.
Here. We'll have, do we have anyone to do the flags? Okay, we'll have a moment of silent prayer, and I would hope today that you would all remember Ronald Dameron, who was a former Galt superintendent here, who passed away this week. And since he's back and on demand, we'll ask Richard Freeman to please lead us in the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Liz, could you please read the video statement?
This meeting of the Galt City Council is being videotaped in its entirety and will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the Government Affairs channel on the Comcast and SureWest cable systems. Tonight's meeting can be seen on Channel 14 and will also be webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv this Friday and Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Tonight's meeting can also be seen via live video streaming on the city's website at www.ci.galt.ca.us. A DVD copy is also available for checkout from any library branch. Members of the audience wishing to address council should fill out a speaker identification form and give it to the clerk. Please speak into the microphone when addressing council and state your name for the record. Also, please silence all your cell phones.
Thank you, Liz. Is there any agenda approval, additions, and/or deletions? I think, Barbara, you had a couple.
Yes, I'd like to pull E3 and 4, please.
And anyone else, council members? Okay, so then we'll go on to presentations. We have code enforcement, Rusty with vacant and foreclosed homes on the decline in Galt. You're on.
Am I on?
You're on.
All right. So now we're on. Okay. Am I good? Does it work? All right. The reason why I'm here tonight is to speak to you about something that's very near and dear to my heart, is vacant and foreclosed properties and distressed houses. The first slide right here that you're going to see is back in 2008 when this whole thing first started going downhill. There were almost 2,000 homes in Sac County alone that were foreclosed and distressed, of which over 400 were here in Galt. That's a pretty significant number here in this smaller town. And as we go through the years there, when you get to 2012, there were approximately 100 foreclosed homes here in Galt, and that number has decreased even more, and I'll touch on that when we get down the road as to the reason why. One of the reasons why I am excited to talk about this today is because it has lowered my cost per month in the last year and a half or so. When this thing first started when it got real bad in 2008, I was probably fielding 10 to 15 calls a month. That's just on the newer homes that I was made aware of, houses that weren't being addressed immediately by the banks. These were homes that were now visibly, if it went foreclosed in the wintertime, now it's springtime and summer, and the weeds were starting to grow and things were becoming visible. And as of the last year, I would say, it's probably down to 2 to 3 a month of new ones that I'm just being made aware of. These are not homes that I already have investigations going on or cases working on. When I first started this back in 2008, getting these properties taken care of was a monster. It was, I don't think the banks were prepared for the crash. They weren't quite sure how to handle it. And I know a lot of these code enforcement officers that I spoke to, not only just in the Valley, but through the state of California and throughout the country, had no idea of how to handle these, because we wanted it done as do the citizens, they wanted it done quickly, and quick wasn't in the cards. I would have to address a house, go up and look at it, make sure that it was vacant. Um, if you couldn't see through the windows or you couldn't tell, then you would go knock door to door, talk to the neighborhood, and make sure that it was vacant. And if that was the case, then it was a matter of using a MERS program, which shows what bank was the last bank to own this loan, or try to hunt down the property owner, which was almost a lost cause because the property owners would just leave in the middle of the night and go. So you'd call the banks. The banks would not give you an answer straight away. They would transfer you over to someone else, and finally you would get to speak to a property maintenance supervisor, who in turn would just tell you, you're number 7,000 on the list. Good luck, because these homes were, throughout the country, and it just took persistence on my part, which I'm thankful that I had that kind of time to get it done, or that I would just have to continually to call them. I would call them every day. I would email them every day. I would stay on them enough to where I could get a turnover rate of anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, which was, according to other code enforcement officers in the Valley, that was unheard of, because they didn't have the luxury of, they were just being bombarded by these, and they were getting to make one phone call and then hope for the best. And contrary to popular belief, when these homes, just because no one's living in it, doesn't mean someone doesn't own it. So to hear people say, well, it's been 2 months, why don't you just go in and take care of it? It's a little more difficult than that. It's easier said than for me to try to go do that, because due process and Fourth Amendment comes into play big time. It is trespassing. It is, these homeowners do have rights. So it's best to go through the banks, and I've been very fortunate that I haven't had to use the budget that was allotted to me, which was not very much, but you have to understand that it's all financial driven, and to use our funds to take care of this property, you may be able to do that 2 or 3 times, but it's not like that every time. Now, to go up to a foreclosed home or a vacant property, it's pretty much, they've got it dialed in now to where I can just go up to the property, and I have to give kudos to Bank of America and Wells Fargo, because both now just post a sticker on the window saying that if there is any questions about this property, please call this number. And I can usually make one phone call. It goes straight to a property maintenance supervisor, and they put it out to bid to a contractor, which I'm assuming there's been a lot of hiring in the property maintenance divisions across the country, because it's booming. And it usually don't take these guys very long. Within 10 days to 14 days, they're usually back with me saying, hey, we've got a contractor on the hook, and he's going to be there within this time frame. So the turnover rate's been pretty quick. And what I've seen by just talking to the neighborhood or the neighbors is that once these banks get there the first time and get it done, it goes on a roll, that it rolls over and it goes on their list. So every 2 to 3 weeks, they just automatically send that crew back out there and get it done. And I've seen that that's worked, because I have asked neighbors and to say, here it is a month later and it's just been cut. Do you know who done that? Just trying to make sure that the neighbors aren't going over and having to take care of it, because I don't want to burden the citizens with this one problem house. And so far, everybody has said, no, you know what, the crew that was in here a month ago, they were back here 3 days ago. So it's proving to work, and I think the banks have got it, they've got it dialed in pretty good to where they're taking care of them quickly anyway.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What about the watering and stuff, though?
To get to that point, there's 2 reasons, as far as why the water is shut off or why the lawn is brown. The first reason is when a house goes vacant or becomes foreclosed and the owners leave, we have no control. SMUD's going to come in and turn the power off. But when there's no electricity, there's no irrigation. Second reason being is that there's 2-story homes in town or across the valley that have overhead plumbing, and the single stories are in slab. But if the water remains on and the house is shut up for, who knows, months on end, if there's a water leak inside that home, By the time that home sells or the realtor goes in to show the home, now you have a mold issue, you have structural damage because of water. It makes financial sense to just close the water off and to have a brown lawn here and there, which is the better half of the sword per se. But I have spoken at the code enforcement meetings, the annual meetings in Anaheim this past year. There were 350 code enforcement officers, and the question was broached: what do you guys do in terms of water shutoff? And 95% of everyone said, yeah, we turn it off. You know, as did the city turn it off, because every month or so I'll get a fax from Inez's office showing of all the water shutoffs. That not only helps me in identifying vacant homes, you know, it also lets me be aware of, in my rounds of, hey, I remember this house is supposed to have no water, but there's 2 cars in the driveway and somebody's living there. So it works in both ways. But that's the reason why the water is shut off at the street, is just because so the house wouldn't be ruined. Even if we did nothing, SMUD's going to come and turn the power off, and there you go. You have no irrigation anyway.
Yeah, but mowing lawns that are dead seems a little
Well,
ridiculous.
I totally understand that, and I look at it from the point of the state fire code states that if the you know, just like cutting a vacant field, you know, over an acre or whatever, if they say it's 6 inches or lower, it's not a fire hazard. There's no code against ugly. I get you, the lawns don't look that great if they're brown, but if the homeowner or if the bank keeps them at what I ask of them, being 6 inches or lower, I can't pin it on it being a fire hazard. It's just part of the...
Well, okay, I'm sorry, I'm still going on this.
That's okay.
But, trees and stuff, too. I mean, nothing is worse than driving by these properties and seeing all these beautiful, mature trees that are dead now.
Right.
We don't have a water truck or something that could go out there and...
I have no way of doing it. The only thing that the only way the California Building Code could even come close to that is on construction sites, not on residential properties. I mean, I can make construction sites have a water truck so dust doesn't get through the neighborhoods, but to go water a tree so it doesn't die, I just don't. Nobody has that authority yet to make that happen. It is a shame. I get you, but it's the lesser of all the evils when it comes to these vacant, distressed properties. Good.
But
The reason for the decline in these foreclosed homes, one of the major reasons, beyond just someone going to buy a new home or to buy a home, it's investor purchases. Investors are buying up properties like crazy, which is, you know, good or bad, either way you want to look at it. You know, it's a good thing for everyone, I believe, because they are doing a good job. And within the last half part of 12, first part of 13, there's been 1,000 properties bought by investors just in Sac County, 40 here in Galt. You know, 40 is a pretty good pop when you talk a couple of neighborhoods, and they've done a fantastic job in the ones that I know that they've purchased. They've even come in our office and asked, do we need permits for painting or carpeting, or, you know, at least they're being proactive and trying to do the right thing, you know, which they don't need a permit for. But a lot of these houses have turned over, you know, and the neighborhoods are at least finally starting to come back in instead of having a foreclosed home every 4 or 5 houses. And these investors are holding on to these properties. From my information that they've given me and from my research, they're holding on to them for 2 to 3 years right now, just as rentals. And when they feel like the market is going to turn in their favor, then they're going to flip them and sell them. As a result, in these, you know, one of the reasons, going back to that first slide, 2012 was down to 100 homes. Well, this right here shows that, you know, within the last 6 to 8 months, these investors have bought 40 of those 100. So, you know, we're down to maybe 50 or 60, you know, foreclosed or vacant homes here in town, which is phenomenal. And there very well could be more, but these homes are not showing any signs of distress. The bank got on it right away, and they're just, you would never know it to drive by that it was vacant. As a result, in these investors buying these properties, and there being a decline in or these distressed homes, it is created a lack of home purchase inventory, which in turn is created new home building. And that's something that we haven't seen since '09. You know, in 2009, we built one house. Mike Guttridge built one house in 2009, and that's it. And so far, Mike has built 12. He's got 12 new homes over there in Creekside already built. The Meadows, Beck Homes off of Elk Hills, they've got 5 underway and 8 more that's in plan check review. So, you know, Chancellor Estates, the Hoffman subdivision, it's now Signature Homes. They have 26 lots over there to finish out that entire subdivision, and that's their plans. River Oaks, the Elliott subdivision, 24 lots, and word is that they're going to finish that 24 lots by December 31st. So it's all a plus, you know, for everyone to get those subdivisions finished and to see new homes coming up in Galt. Is there any questions on anything? Good?
Good.
Thanks,
Glad-
guys, for your time.
Good job.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean you're done?
I don't have to be done.
I was waiting for another slide.
I'm done. You can fire away.
Just real quick, what about occupied homes that are getting dilapidated a bit? Can we tell the citizens on, other than bombarding you with more work, I mean, is there a better way that we should handle that as far as complaints, or calling a specific number, or what?
Well, I think that we've got a really good. I mean, I've got a good rapport with the police department and with, you know, a lot of the citizens here. I mean, being here 10 years, you know, I've got to know a lot of people. You know, bottom line, when it comes down to addressing property maintenance issues or trying to get these things done, it kind of falls onto me, and I'm totally fine with that. That's what I get paid to do.
Yeah. Right.
You know, the police department has been very good about contacting me on something that they find that's not secured. You know, I mean, basically that's what they do. You know, over the night shift or whatever, if they see a window open or a door ajar, they're pretty good about contacting me and saying, you know, hey, there's a vacant home over here. I'll hang out right here until you get here, and then we'll try to get it secured as soon as possible.
Okay, that was part B of my question, was that because I've been told that some homes have been broken into actually by squatters or gangs, and but I also know that the police chief has instructed our police department to do building checks more on a regular basis, I believe. Is that correct?
Mhm.
So that's all I had, Rusty. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Nope.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Rusty.
Thank you, Rusty.
Now we'll have the presentation of military banners to Sean Sullivan and Zach Brooks.
Joshua Brooks.
Pardon me?
It's Joshua with the typo.
Oh, okay. Well, that was a big typo from Joshua to Zach.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Cruz?
Doesn't look like either one of my young men are here. Are the parents here? Please step forward. I was very pleased when I first started this project. I'm actually more pleased now because I've got young men and women coming home safe.
Mark,
Mark?
you want to go get a microphone?
Can't hear me as loud as I am. Very pleased that I started this program quite a while ago, and even more so that I have young men and women coming home safely. It started off at Strawberry Festival. We had 3 young men that had returned home, and at that time their banners were returned to them and their families. It is my pleasure and honor to return both the banners to Joshua Brooks, Brooke, I keep putting the S on there, and Sean Sullivan. These aren't the originals. The originals got beat up by the wind.
I drive by every day.
Oh, awesome.
Joshua?
Yeah.
And on behalf of the entire city, please give our best to your sons and thank them for their service to our country.
Thank you.
We're gonna do public comment. We'll read public comment next. Liz, public comment, please.
Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the audience may address the council on non-agenda items. Speakers may address council on any agenda item during consideration of the item. Speakers shall restrict their comments to issues that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council and limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. Please fill out a speaker sheet located on the tables inside the entrances to the council chambers and forward the completed speaker sheet to the city clerk.
Do we have any?
We do. Al Baldwin? Thanks, sir.
Good evening, Al Baldwin, a very concerned citizen of this wonderful town, Galt, with a great character. I come tonight because I've had a couple of people, more than a couple, very concerned about a situation we have in Galt right now. We've had it for a while, but now it's becoming the frustration point, and that means something you can't do anything about, but I can't accept that. I think we can. We have a Methodist church that's on C Street that had homeless people. They tried to take care of one of them, and then they just couldn't do it anymore. And that person started sleeping outside the church in the bushes, going to the bathroom on their lawns, eating and throwing stuff all around. Not only one, but then there was a couple of them. Directly across the street, we have a major dentist in town. I think you all know who it is. And next to the dentist, there's the old VFW hall where the Historical Society meets. And we have been warned not to go outside by the little shed out there because there are people out there. Monday I had a meeting at for the Historical Society, and I went there and there were 2 people on the lawn underneath the tree. And when we looked at them, they looked at us and then they decided to leave, but they didn't leave without leaving a lot of debris. Now, who cleans this up? This is the frustrating part. The Methodist Church, the people have to clean that up every time. And this is not just garbage thrown there on the lawn. This is feces and other things, okay? And they're getting tired of it. I've heard they say they called the police department, and they've done what they could. I don't know if there's any ordinances. I found out about this when I got back from Idaho, so I hadn't had a lot of time to do a lot of research on the ordinances and things like that, but I did find one that was in Florida, the other side of the United States, and you might want to look at that. The second page, I've sort of put yellow markings on it. It's what they're doing. I don't know if we have something like this that we are doing. I don't know what the ordinances say about homeless people, what you can do. I know there's new laws that are coming out now, and it's a real challenge to do something. And I do know that there is a person in town that gives them showers, and they give them clothes and food when they can. And I know they're trying to do the best they can. Even awarded them, I think it was around $3,000 to help them keep doing this, which is great. The thing is I don't want this to turn into just pure frustration, something you can't do anything about and you keep trying. So I would appreciate the help if the council can do it. The people would love to have it. I can give you names. I don't want to give them on the air right now, but I can give you the names of the people that have talked to me, and they would like to see something done. If you have any recommendations, they're asking for your help. The police department's done, I guess, what they can do. They get calls and
Mr. Baldwin.
do so much. I understand.
Thank you.
I got about 5 seconds left. I'll get them back to you. The only thing is I wish you would really seriously look into this. This is not happening in just those areas. It's happening all over Galt. A lot of people don't know what to do.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'd like to add, because I had the same, no, thank you, Al. I was just going to add that I had the same conversation with the city manager, about 3-4 weeks ago, in the same areas that you're talking about. So
Okay.
the city has been aware of it. And I think maybe staff should probably address it. What you present deals mainly with right-of-ways, and we're not talking about right-of-ways. You're talking about private property.
It's private property. Right.
So maybe
And business property, too,
right.
you know.
So maybe what needs to happen is maybe the property needs to be posted for no trespassing. I'm not really sure. That's really kind of a police department issue. But I agree. And another location is the AT&T store
Right across from
the
that. They
street.
cut their bushes, too.
Yeah,
You know that.
and I saw the same stuff you saw, the garbage, the trash, the waste, the human waste. It was very disgusting. And I agree something should be done. And I think to the extent that the city can
Well,
to eliminate it.
very quickly, Kurt, we watered the lawn between the dentist office and the meeting hall, and they cut the lines so the water wouldn't work.
I understand that.
So I'm just saying it's just awful. And I'm hoping that there is some guidance that we can get from you.
I would like to have staff maybe look
Right.
into it and maybe just let council know by internal memo as to what's going on. Maybe we can report out next meeting or the meeting after that. I would appreciate that.
So we don't have any ordinances on that.
We do. We have
Okay.
to do stuff. And police have been out there on numerous occasions.
So we do have ordinances, so,
Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad.
yeah.
I'm
Just
doing
a status report as to
Right.
where we're at.
I'm just
yeah.
trying to do things a little differently now instead of me going out, taking all the pictures, trying to get an article in the paper, doing a report on it beforehand now. So I'm hoping that we can, do
Yeah, it's
something
really
with
nice if
this.
you let us know
I
first
appreciate
instead
that.
of
Thank you very
putting
much.
it in the paper. We appreciate
And
that.
Ron Dameron was a good man. They're going to have services at the Methodist Church over there. I found out at 3 o'clock on Sunday. Just
Thank
let
you.
know.
Thank you.
And just as a last comment, this is something I've been working on for quite some time, as Jason and Steve both know, and was the no solicitation ordinance that we adopted and the council adopted. And the other thing we run into is maybe some of you don't know is the personal rights of some of those individuals. We can't violate them. We got to make sure that we're trying to protect our property and the way our town looks too. So it's really a hard balancing act. So hopefully we can try to come up with some more answers.
It's a
Mhm.
challenge. It's not just a challenge here in Galt. It's a challenge all over
challenge
the country.
everywhere.
Homelessness and the problem with some of the smaller cities like Galt is we don't have a lot of the services that some of the larger cities have. There's no homeless shelter here, so
Right.
they don't have any place to go. They don't have any place to sleep, and so a lot of times we do refer them, to other cities that have more resources than we do. But a lot of them don't want to go, so they camp where they can, and we try to do our best to enforce the laws and the rights of private property owners, but it's an ongoing challenge. You chase them off one property and they find another property, and it's a constant battle to try to kind of move them around and relocate them. But
And
the police
I
department
also
does their
do know-
best.
Yeah, I also know that PD has been very diligent, especially in this last year or so, very diligent about trying to get these people to go home or not be laying in the public places here in town.
Is there anything you want to add, Chief, or?
No, I think the vice mayor's expressed it. We every night are out looking for places where homeless are staying, besides doing our business checks. And there are a couple of gentlemen here that we run across almost on a nightly basis at different locations regarding the city of Galt. And we continue to move them on. One of the things we have is if they're on private property, we need some kind of a trespass notification to the police department that we can in fact do something regarding them trespassing on the property. We can't just say you can't be on this property. We need the owner of the property to say or have it posted no trespassing.
So just one real quick question. So on some of those properties, have you asked the owner to post a no trespassing sign, or?
We actually have a sergeant that's assigned to what we call quality of life issues, and he addresses this, I won't say on a daily basis, but several times during the week regarding different responsibilities of property ownerships and what have you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Hey, Barb. Chief, what exactly can the police do with someone that is homeless? You can't lock them up. What can you do? What are your options?
I think the city manager said is we try to direct them to some other location who in fact has services which we can't provide. Um, some of the biggest issues we have is we can't violate people's rights and tell them that they can't be at a location. If they're sleeping, if they're defecating on property and things like that, there are things that we can in fact do, and we can arrest for trespass. But the biggest thing is we end up telling the people to move on, don't come back, try to talk to the property owner, try to get the bushes cut back to a certain height so in fact they can't hide underneath, they can't sleep underneath it, and it's a constant game between us and them. We run through as far as checking the creek area where we have homeless camps, and in fact we'll be back at, we've got another operation as far as to go visit that location again. And we just continue to try to get them to move on. The biggest issue is this is a problem, so how do we direct them to another location, to another city? Then we become pushing our problem off on another city. But our biggest thing is to try to get these people help, and that's usually done through some kind of organization, faith-based, or some type of social program, or in fact we might be able to give them some kind of a job skills or something else to change what they're doing. I will tell you, coming from a much larger city, that there is a percentage of people that are homeless, that choose to be homeless, and there isn't anything you can do about changing the way that they operate.
Thank you.
Have they impacted the parks? Are we hearing any complaints about?
Well, we had a problem for some time with a gentleman on a horse who was homeless, and that went on for, I think, close to a year. I think that he's found another location to be currently, but the impact of the parks is it's a public park. Do they have a right to come and stay in the public park during hours of operation? Yes, they do. And unless they're doing something that's a nuisance or bothering other people, there's not a lot that we can do regarding making them move from the park.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else?
I'm kind of concerned about one thing. Did you report the fact that they cut the irrigation lines? Because that's no longer just trespass. We're talking about vandalism at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
I gave him a notepad so he can give me the name so we can contact him first thing in the morning because Sergeant Dietrichson's on, and this will go directly to him.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay.
Dennis Barrett?
My name is Dennis Berry, and I work for FGL Environmental Laboratory. We're a professional, successful operation with 5 operations here in California, one being just south of here in Stockton. On May 2012, we bid on a contract opportunity publicized by the City of Galt for laboratory services and report preparation, and on July 3rd, we were told that we were not successful. After many emails and voicemails and requesting details of the bid results, we finally, in January 2013, got the final document of the results. And here were the results. My company, FGL Environmental, $97,000. Sierra Foothill Laboratories, $145,000. California Laboratory Services, $150,000. The contract was awarded to the highest bidder at $150,000. When we asked for clarification, we were told it was not a competitive bid. That's great in this economy. The winning bid included engineering services, which the other bidders didn't provide. They also included a copy of the submission to you, the council members, and stating that the price of the winning bid and our price were just marginally different. In fact, they mentioned the number of 1%. The balance to be made up in engineering services. The information sent to you, council members, was incorrect. Our bid, we're a very professional organization, was complete, including engineering services. The engineering services were included in the appropriate boxes and the form that we were required to submit it to the city. And of course, there would have been a savings of $53,000 to the City of Galt. Our questions and expressions of concerns went on deaf ears. We requested a meeting with the city manager, which was denied. Then we asked our questions and concerns, which we outlined to be addressed, and we were told by Mr. Berman that he did not wish to visit the situation. We had a similar experience with Mayor Powers, who again refused the meeting or to consider our questions or concerns. What we have to say, apart from the overall concern about the award of this contract, is that you received wrong information on which you based your decision. There would have been a savings to the city of $53,000, remembering that we are a highly qualified organization, been in business a long time. And we feel there were apparent improprieties that we brought to the attention of city officials and to the mayor, and they were ignored. We would ask the City Council to establish a committee to investigate the awarding of this contract, and also to establish new bidding procedures to ensure that future awards are done in a fair and equitable manner. Thank you for your time.
I think we need to hear some
I
comments.
would like, Mr. Winkler, could you please respond to this?
Yes, and the incident in question did occur prior to my watch, but we do have Mark Clarkson here, who was the lead staff person organizing that request for proposal, and coincidentally, my predecessor, interim public works director, is here tonight for another item, and it did occur on his watch. But before we dig to that level, I would like to say that this came to my attention by way of correspondence. I did look into it. I've reviewed both the request for proposal, his original form, and I have reviewed both FGL's proposal and the successful proposer, and I did review the original staff report, and with one very minor possible exception, found them all to be in order, properly done, and candidly, I would characterize the concerns you're hearing as we didn't win the bid, sort of a sour grapes. It was not a low bid situation. It was a qualifications-based proposal. And I would just like to read some excerpts from our request for proposal. And the city's intent is to utilize a consultant agreement. That's what puts it in a most qualified, not lowest price category. And then the proposal selection, the city of Galt reserves the right without qualification to select any proposal, and I'll paraphrase, when such action is considered to be in the best interest of the city. Then we go on to say that exercise discretion and apply its judgment with respect to any proposals submitted. The city of Galt may select proposals based on initial proposals received without discussion or after detailed discussion or contract negotiations. Then I'll just be very brief. The consultant selection procedure that was outlined in our call for proposals is the city of Galt intends to engage the most qualified consultant. It is imperative that the consultant's proposal fully address all aspects of the RFP. The proposal must provide city staff with clearly expressed information concerning the consultant's understanding of the city of Galt's specific requirements, which result in timely preparation and reporting of analytical results. The city intends to select a consultant laboratory based on the following factors, not necessarily listed in order of importance: responsiveness to the RFP, past performance with city and other references, experience of proposed laboratory team and years in business, consultants' demonstrated competence and professional qualifications and accreditation, ability of the consultant to perform the required analytical tests, and meet the proposed, part of my page got cut off. There was more to that, and then proposed fee and structure. Proposals will first be ranked without regard to fee. After this initial ranking, proposals will be re-ranked with consideration given to proposed fee and fee structure. The city will enter into negotiations with a single consultant to establish the actual final fee and the final scope of work. Now, while if you take it first blush, we asked each proposer to give us a proposal for prices based on a select example of services that the city may require, so that we could try to do some form of apples and apples comparison, and that it is a qualifications based, but price is a factor in any selection. And but it was an open proposal that consultants could bid all items of work or select. There were 2 scopes of work. There were 12 specific tasks with the first scope of work. There were 6 specific tasks with the second scope of work. They could bid both scopes, one scope or the other scope. The city reserved the right to select multiple providers. We had 3 independent staff members, including 2 outside consulting parties as part of that. We have a coastal 3 licensed professional engineers review these proposals. The first screening, as we said, was for the merits of the proposal without looking at the price. And then we'd come back and add price in after they decided who they believed was the most technically qualified. Unanimously, the proposal from FGL was found to be less well-qualified proposal and less specific to this, addressing the city's needs than the recommended and approved consultant that was selected. Frankly, I'm a little taken aback at FGL's refusal, being a large firm that operates citywide or statewide, to go to this level of insistence that they have the best proposal, they have the best bid, and actually they're the ones misrepresenting. What we represented in our staff report was that when we compare like features, that there was 1% difference between those 2 proposals, and given that hands down we felt that the proposal of the selected firm was much more professionally and suitably prepared in meeting the city's specific requested criteria, that the 1% price difference would not change that judgment. And staff prior to my coming here recommended that, and I fully support the evaluation that was made, looking at it yet again independently, coming in. And I have experience with 30 water systems in San Joaquin County, and frankly we've had some contract history with FGL, and there have been questions over the years with some of the accuracy and support levels that are received, and San Joaquin County elected on several occasions to use alternate labs because of problems we were having. So I bring that in as independent corroboration that I believe staff made the right selection. I would make one correction in deference to the gentleman present today, and in reviewing the staff report, there was one minor discrepancy that was not totally accurate, and I'll just read that paragraph to you. It's 2 sentences. In comparing pricing related solely to the analysis of constituents, FGL Environmental and California Lab Services, the selected vendor, quotes are within 1% of each other, and Sierra Foothill Laboratory, Inc., who was the third proposer, was 35% higher. We probably, in hindsight, given the scrutiny that Fruit Growers Lab seems to demand in this case, probably a more accurate statement would be to say that in comparing pricing related solely to the analysis of constituents that were common to each of the 3 proposals, the pricing was within 1%. Obviously, some bid some scope of work, some bid others, and some bid professional services that others didn't address in their proposal. The only way staff could sort of compare apples and apples was to take the items that were common to all 3 proposals and look at those pricing structures, and those are within $500 of each other over a contract award amount of over $100,000.
Thank you.
So that would be my comments.
Okay. Thank you.
Do I get to?
No, your 3 minutes are up, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to say something personally for myself. I'm not always an authority. I'm not an authority on a lot of things that have to do with city government and city things that go on with the city. I rely on our staff. We have a great staff, and I don't think there would ever be any occasion for me to go against staff's recommendations unless it was something really, really out there. So I think I say what I think the rest of the council would say was we stick by our staff because they are the authorities on the subject. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Uh-huh.
I would ask the city attorney, is it appropriate for us to review the consultant's comparison?
If this is a subject that the council wants there to be further debate on, further investigation, you can certainly place this matter on a future agenda and have a full review if that's the council's desire.
When this came to the council, did we have all the information for us to look at when we,
Yes.
okay.
Is it staff report?
And it was not contradictory to what's coming up at this point. Okay.
And I think we were given the information again, weren't we? Yes. Someone else?
Frank Gallardo?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Powers, City Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Frank Gallardo. I am here just representing myself, and I come from the big city of Lodi, California. But the reason I'm here is because, like all of you, and I believe everybody in this room, I love the city of Galt very, very much. I will keep this short. I know that we are going to be talking later today about temporary fee reductions on new non-residential buildings, and I want to applaud the city of Galt for a couple things. Number one, even bringing this issue up of reducing non-residential building fees. I wanted to just mention one other thing, and this is a non-agenda item because I know we're not talking about residential fees at this point, but I wanted to make just a general statement, and that is for every 100 new homes that are built, approximately 320 jobs are created for the period of 1 year. On top of that, 60 full-time jobs are created for every 100 houses that are built. There's 60 full-time jobs that are created for the lifetime that those houses have people in them. All of us in this room are interested in the quality of life that Galt has, which is incredible, and that is in large part because of our great public service, public safety, fires here, police services that are incredible for this town. All of this requires jobs in order. That's what, at the end of the day, what makes Galt great is people have to have jobs. And I just want to impress upon the City Council as we are moving forward, and this is not in any way criticism about the current fee structure, because I know that things are being done to look at them and to reduce them. That being said, I just wanted to put out these figures to remind everyone just how important construction is to our quality of life. When I was the Galt Chamber of Commerce Executive Director, I was visiting businesses that I was asking them to join the chamber, and some of them that were like in heating and air and some of these ancillary businesses that support construction were telling me, geez, Frank, I'd love to join the chamber, but I'm not sure if I can. I don't even know if I'm going to be in business next year. What my point is that when housing, new housing, when that goes down, it affects so many other sectors and even our restaurants and everybody else. So just looking at the totality of the circumstances of how important a job generator new home construction is, I just wanted to be a cheerleader for that industry, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Frank.
Okay, bye-bye, thank you.
Okay, now we're going to the information and consent calendar, because the other one is on something that's on the agenda, correct? Would you like to comment on 3 and 4, Barbara?
Should we read it first?
Sure.
Or I can read it either way.
Okay, it's the social media. I'm sorry, number 3 is the social media policy.
Okay, and my question, Paula, is just trying to understand how it works. Can you give me an example of how a department is going to be posting, and I'm assuming this is on Facebook, to a resident or a business?
Sure. Good evening, Council, Mayor. Facebook is a good example because it's probably one of the more popular ones right now, but this social media policy applies to all different avenues. But in using Facebook, the city, one of the administrators would create a page, and let's say it's Parks and Recreation For example, they would be able to post on this Facebook page events, classes, anything going on in the department to let the community know. And that would be followed by people that are also a part of Facebook. They have their own account, and they could go on and like certain events, or they can post comments about certain events. So it's really a good way just to get information out to the community about what's going on in the city.
And so like a business or a resident then can post on their Facebook, and then will the city see that? How does that work?
Well, what could happen is that if someone has their own Facebook account and they go on to the City of Galt and they like that page, then that could come up on their news feed, for example, saying, oh, this person likes the City of Galt webpage. And so that's a good thing, because that could get more people going over to our website to see what's going on with the city.
So they can comment on whatever it is the city has posted. Is that
Yes,
is that
they
the way
can
it'll
make.
work?
That's the way we have it set up right now. That they would be able to make comments, and of course that would be up to the administrators of each section of the website or the page to make sure that those comments are appropriate.
And who will be doing that? I thought in the report it said that it would be the city manager and the IT person. Is that who's going to be doing the monitoring?
Well, actually the monitoring will be done, I believe, from the administrator in each department. They'll be checking the comments to make sure that they are appropriate.
So there'll be a delay from the time, say, a business responds to something before it's actually posted.
No, it would probably be posted right away, but then it would be the department's responsibility, their representative, to check their page to make sure that there have not been any inappropriate comments and to remove those.
Then the other question is, and now this can also go from employee to employee, correct? Employees can post on Facebook, on this Facebook that we're setting up, to other employees.
Well, what they would be able to post the same as any other community member, so they would be able to make comments, but they wouldn't be able to make changes to that Facebook page, for example. So if I have an HR Facebook page announcing jobs or benefits or whatever the case might be, Armando would not be able to come in and add announcements or anything to my page. But if he wanted just to make a comment, he could certainly do that just like any other community member or anyone really.
And then finally, how much time do you see us spending on this monitoring system that we're setting up?
My guess would be that it would take just a couple of minutes each morning to look at the comments.
Okay.
Not very much time. The time would be more in the preparation, creating the page, and then adding the events. And again, that wouldn't probably be a lot of time. And monitoring it just on a daily basis, just a couple of minutes for a quick review.
Not every department would have one, is that correct?
No.
It's only in the case of special events, in most cases, or if they wish to advertise something?
Well, there are some departments that will definitely, like Parks and Recreation,
Right.
they will always have one. You're right. Human Resources, I probably wouldn't have a page, but I'm just using that as an example.
Okay.
But it would be up all the time, and the goal is to keep it current. So there would be always new information on the page.
For example, Public Works, they would be maybe posting different activities or something that's going on.
Yes, and they can post road closures or detours in the city or openings of like the Galt interchange or all those exciting things happening.
At the same time, then, could a resident or a business post something saying, we have an oak tree that's dying, can you come and take a look at it? Would it be that kind of a communication?
They probably could post that, but that's not the appropriate place to do that, because we do have contact information for concerns and questions throughout the city. Now, I don't know if Jason wants to
We have a
answer
place
this.
now on our current website for residents to post those kinds of issues. So if there's a pothole or a street light out, they can go on the website and there's a section on there where they can post that information that gets to the right department, and we can address it.
Okay. Thank you.
There is one thing on Facebook that if there are events, which I think is really nice, is like, if, let's say if there was the, with your thing that's coming up in September, um, you can go on there and add more people, which is great because like then you can invite a ton of people to something, and then so that's kind of a neat thing, and people can accept or decline if they're going to come. So you can.
And we did something similar to that last year for the Winter Bird Festival, just kind of getting
Got the word out there.
Okay, well, thank you for that explanation to for someone that's not really great with social media. And with that, I would move the item.
Who's on Facebook?
May I have a second real quick?
Oh, sure.
You said something about somebody posting comments. You said that would probably be posted right away.
Yes, on Facebook, typically when you post a comment, it's right away.
That bothers me a little bit because if they can't check it till morning, you have something that's been on from, supper time until the following morning at 7 o'clock when somebody comes in. Is there any way that we could possibly have that delayed until they're approved? Maybe we could talk to IT about that. Possibly?
It's possible, but I mean that maybe that's something we could have IT double check
I would
on.
appreciate if we could look into that because there's so much out there that people can be very mean, and I would not want anybody to be hurt by something being posted. For
Maybe
12
we can
12
put
hours,
a delay request on it. Oh, and here's our IT.
Oh, looky here. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Mike. The answer is yes, we could put a moderator on comments and approve comments that are posted on Facebook.
That's great.
Awesome.
That's the good news.
Great. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
I think that's what you were kind of worried about too, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, so that's a good thing. Okay.
So I'm moving
Oh,
the item.
You have a
Oh, okay, Alex, come on up.
Oh, you're
Hold on
welcome.
again. On this Facebook thing, can the council members talk to each other by making statements?
I don't Facebook.
I don't think so either. You're
Well,
right.
it would be the
And-
Brown
and
Act, and we
can the
probably
council
wouldn't do that.
people see what the comments are of some other council people on Facebook? I know this is,
Well, I guess
I'm just saying, the city used to have its own website that had comments that you could make on it years ago, and I found a comment that wasn't very good years ago, and I brought it to the attention of the clerk, and it got taken off like that. The whole thing was taken off, not just the comment. What I'm suggesting is instead of the Facebook thing, you might want to just have the city website have a question and answer thing, and you can get either back to them if it's for everybody. Facebook, I'm not on Facebook, my wife is, okay? And you can like a lot of people. And you can get comments from a lot of people, and only you see it if you want to, if it's the one you're going to send a message to. It's just my personal opinion. Sorry. I would prefer not to have it on Facebook, that public, but that's me personally.
Okay, and duly noted, Al.
Okay?
Okay.
I'm just telling you,
Yeah.
think about the public part of it, okay?
And just a response to that, if a council member were to make a comment, it would really be as a more of a private citizen, just like any other citizen can make a comment. I guess that was my point. So you wouldn't have access to the page and events and other comments, or it'd be your own individual comments. So.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't be doing that.
I would be stay away.
I got my own Facebook page.
I don't know.
I only let people talk to me that I want to talk to me. It works out swell that way. Barbara, you want to go to the policy number 4 now?
Do we have a vote?
We have a motion and a second.
Oh,
to vote
I didn't
on.
hear it. I'm sorry.
We had some discussion.
Your vote? Yeah. So we had a motion and a second on that item, so if there's no further comment, it'd be appropriate to call the vote.
Okay, call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Singleton?
Just a minute, huh? Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Okay, Barbara, number 4 now, the policy regarding Parks and Recreation Facility Program sponsorships.
My question on this was, did we get any input from the commission, the Parks and Recs Commission? I've always felt like if we have these commissions, it's a good way to get the public's input on things that we're doing, especially if in this case, the Parks and Recs Commission. I'm thinking they might have some suggestions because they are so involved in the programs. So that's my question. Did we get any input at all from the Parks and Recs Commission on this item?
No, we did not take it to the Parks Commission before presenting it to the council.
I would think that it would be appropriate to do so. Do you disagree, City Attorney?
I don't have an opinion either way. If the council would desire us to take it off the agenda and run it through the Parks and Recreation Commission, we certainly could do that.
Well, I agree with Councilmember Payne.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
Okay, so we'll take that off.
Second.
Oh, see, that's where I don't get it, because you're so fast over there. Okay.
I missed it too.
Yeah, see. Call for the vote on that one, please, Liz.
Vice Mayor Singleton?
What's the vote
Yeah,
now?
what's the motion?
Give it back to the
We
Parks
send
and
it back
Rec
to Parks and Rec Commission.
for
Review and
review and
comment.
recommendation.
Yeah, I'd rather send it back, please.
That would be a yes.
Yes, okay, I just wanted to make sure, man.
Councilmember Payne?
Yes.
Councilmember Campion?
Yes.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Okay, so Liz, do you mind reading 1, 2, 5, and 6 so we can vote on those, please?
Okay, number 1, approval of the minutes of the special and regular meetings of June 18th, 2013. Number 2, approval of the City of Galt warrants. Number 5, approval of the Treasurer's report for the period ending May 2013. And number 6, approval of the Capital Improvement Program project updates.
Any further discussion on any of them? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Okay, now we're on to the Northeast Galt Landscaping and Lighting District, public hearing, approval of engineer's report, and levying of annual assessments for fiscal year 2013 to 14.
Madam Mayor, Bill Forrest will be making this annual presentation. Will be 3 public hearings. We'd recommend that you receive a brief staff report in each one and then open that hearing and receive any comments from the public. And after the close of that hearing, we'll move on, and it's the 3 lighting and landscape districts. So with that, Mr. Forrest would make a brief presentation on the first item.
Good evening. As mentioned, this is the first of 3 similar staff reports regarding the city's landscape and lighting districts. The recommendations for this particular one is conduct a public hearing on the levy of proposed assessments for the Northeast Galt Landscaping and Lighting District for fiscal year 2013-2014 and related engineers report. And upon the closing of the public hearing, adopt a resolution approving the Northeast Galt Landscaping and Lighting District engineers report and levying of annual assessments for said fiscal year. Some brief items. This district was formed in 1990. The levy annual assessments are to fund maintenance and operation activities in the district. For example, maintenance and operations of landscape medians, landscape corridors, the screening walls, sound walls, street lighting facilities, park improvement, open spaces, and the district administration. The overall benefit zone for the Northeast area consists of the residential and commercial industrial parcels within the Northeast area of Galt, lying east of State Route 99. Currently, there's 3,013 parcels are being assessed. The annual assessment for residential parcels within the district vary, typically ranging from about $52 to about $302. The Northeast area assessments have not changed since its inception, and due to Prop 218 may not be increased without a ballot vote. At your regular meeting on June 18, 2013, Council approved the noticing of the draft engineer's report, declared intent to levy such assessments and ordered a public hearing, which is what we're about ready to do, for the consideration of same as required by the Landscape and Lighting Act of 1972. Real briefly, in previous years, we included kind of the state of the various district funds, and particularly in the Northeast Galt landscaping line district that expenditures have exceeded the revenues. For fiscal year 2013, the proposed budget reflects an anticipated increase in expenditures. Fund balance projections remain positive for this coming fiscal year. However, if future expenditures exceed revenues, current service levels will not be sustainable. In a related action, also on June 18th, the City Council approved several cost-saving recommendations regarding the city's landscaping maintenance services contract. And for this particular district, that resulted in an approximate saving of about $28,000 to the district. These indicated savings are not reflected in the engineer's report. The annual assessments represent revenues to be collected in an amount of $453,246, which, as mentioned, are completely offset by district expenditures for that fiscal year. In conclusion, I ask that you conduct a public hearing, and at the close of the public hearing, adopt a resolution approving the Northeast Galt Landscaping Lighting District Engineers Report and levying of annual assessments and the collection of monies for fiscal year 2013-2014.
Okay, so open it to public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to speak on the subject? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. And council? Okay. Then would you read the recommended action, please, Liz?
Conduct a public hearing regarding the levy of proposed assessments for the Northeast Galt Landscaping and Lighting District for fiscal year 2013-2014 and related engineer's report, and upon closing of the public hearing, adopt a resolution approving the Northeast Galt Landscaping and Lighting District engineer's report and levying of annual assessments for fiscal year 2013-14.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept.
Second? Second. Call for the vote, please, Liz.
Vice Mayor Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Now we're on to the City of Galt Landscaping and Lighting District number 3. Public hearing, approval of engineer's report, and levying of annual assessments for fiscal year 2013 and 14.
I'll try to be brief. I won't say yada yada or blah blah blah. But, recommendations are very similar to the previous, just with the district name being changed. This district was formed in 2005. The levies, annual assessments fund very similar activities in this particular district, which is lying west of State Route 99, but excluding the parcels that are in the West Side District, which is the item following this one. Currently, 230 parcels are being assessed. What's different about this district is when it was adopted, a proviso was adopted to increase the assessments based on a CPI index. Based on the CPI, if the CPI was less than a 1.5% increase, the district, you could adopt an assessment up to that amount. In this particular case, looking at the CPI for the comparison from January 2012 to January 2013, it was a increase of the CPI of about 1.65%. So the increase in the assessment for this district reflects that particular CPI index. Same stuff, at the regular meeting on June 18th, you authorized the posting of their draft engineer's report, etc. Same issues, same discussion, if you will, regarding expenditures versus revenues in terms of the adoption of the June 18th landscape maintenance contract. The savings to this particular district were about $14,000. Again, those indicated savings are not represented within the budget as contained within the engineer's report for this district. With that, I offer that you open the public hearing, take testimony, and then at the close of the public hearing, adopt the resolution.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to speak on landscape and lighting district number 3? I'm going to close the public hearing. And Liz, would you read the recommendation, please?
Conduct a public hearing regarding the levy of proposed assessments for the City of Galt landscaping and lighting district number 3 for fiscal year 2013-14 and related engineers reports. Upon closing the public hearing, adopt a resolution approving the City of Galt landscaping and lighting district number 3 engineers report and levying of annual assessments for fiscal year 2013-14.
I have a motion.
Motion approved.
Second? Second. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Singleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz.
Aye.
Mayor Powers.
Aye. Now we're on to number 3. West Side Galt Lighting, Landscaping and Maintenance District 1990-2. Public hearing, approval of engineers report and levying of annual assessments for fiscal year 2013 to 14.
The West Side District was formed in 1990. The overall is residential and commercial industrial parcels generally lying west of Highway 99. There are particularly residential parcels on the east side. The West Side assessments have not changed since in its inception, and due to Prop 218 may not be increased without a vote. Same thing about the regular meeting on June 18th, where you authorize posting of the draft engineers reports and publication of notice and set the date for the public hearing. And briefly touching on the expenditure of revenues, pretty much the same story. In this particular case, the savings to the West Side District were very minimal with the adoption of the landscape services. So with that, in conclusion, conduct a public hearing and upon close of the public hearing, adopt the resolution approving the engineer's report and levying of the annual assessment.
Okay, we're going to open public hearing for West Side Galt Lighting and Landscaping and Maintenance District. And we have someone going to speak.
Good evening, Council. Rick Walters. On the West Side Lighting and Landscaping District, I think there's 14 different segments. Is that correct? And in one of those segments, which is on A Street, we have hedges. Now, why we put hedges there, I don't know. They're very labor intensive. So one day I watched one of the landscapers take a saw or whatever, chainsaw or whatever, shaping the hedge, and it took them half an hour to do one hedge. So if you guys want to save money, take out those hedges and put something else in there that's not so labor intensive. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? So we're going to close the public hearing. And Liz, would you mind reading the action again, please?
Conduct a public hearing regarding the levy of proposed assessments for the West Side Lighting, Landscaping, and Maintenance District 1990-2 for fiscal year 2013-14 and related engineers report. Upon closing of the public hearing, adopt a resolution approving the West Side Lighting, Landscaping, and Maintenance District 1990-2 engineers report and levying of annual assessments for fiscal year 2013-14.
Hear a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Singleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz.
Aye.
Mayor Powers.
Aye. Thank you. Now we're going to go to strategic plan. We met, all city managers and city council met last week on Thursday and had a session where we've said what we've done in the last 6 months and things that we haven't quite finished and things we'd like to add to what we'd like to accomplish in the next 6 months. I think we had 69 things that we did, which is a pretty good number, I think, for city, and it will be up on the website soon.
Yes.
Soon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have each council member read the what's of each of our 4 plans and objectives. So we're going to start off with enhancing economic development, and that would be Council Member Cruz, please.
Okay. Number 1, we present to the City Council for consideration options for temporary reduction in the non-residential traffic impact fees. Number 2, we're going to be completing the CEQA review for the entertainment complex. Number 3, contingent upon approval from the developers, present to the City Council for action the development agreement for the entertainment complex. Number 4, update the economic development roadmap and have it certified by the Federal Economic Development Administration as a CEDS, which stands for Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. Number 5, present options to the city manager for acceptance of credit card payments for building permits and related entitlements. Number 6, contingent upon city council approval, initiate a comprehensive update to the zoning code land use matrix. And last, contingent upon city council approval, retain a qualified consultant to update the Traffic Capital Improvement Program, TCIP, with the goal of long-term reduction of non-residential traffic impact fees.
Thank you. Our second goal is to improve financial stability and maintenance of reserves, and Councilmember Campion's going to read that one.
Thank you. Number 1 is to identify and recommend to the City Council for action new or revised service fees, if any, to be charged by the city. Number 2, issue city permits for the Walmart project. Number 3, present to the City Council for action recommendations for a collection services extension and transfer station agreement with Cal Waste, which is on the agenda tonight for consideration. Obtain a long-term use agreement with Regional Law Enforcement Training Facility. And number 5, the last one, present to City Council for action the city's reserve policy to ensure compliance with Gatsby.
Thank you. And our third goal is to provide services and facilities that are responsive to community needs, and that's Vice Mayor Singleton, please.
Okay, number 1 is to develop and present to the City Council at least 2 strategies for enhanced code enforcement outreach regarding blighted and foreclosed properties within the City of Galt. Number 2, evaluate and update emergency operations plans to include shelter component to address community health and safety threats. E.g. is the high heat, over 100 degrees, 110 degrees, place where people can cool off. Number 3, recommended to the City Council for direction funding options for the Police Activities League. Number 4, develop a 5-year plan and capital maintenance of city buildings and facilities for inclusion in the city's budget.
Thank you. And last, improve community involvement and two-way communication, and that's Councilmember Payne.
Bring forward to the City Council for action the establishment of funding of the Galt Community Alliance Committee and promote and post on an ongoing basis community and city events on a social media calendar. Number 2, launch the City of Galt Facebook page. Number 3, develop and implement a roundabout outreach and education program to prepare the public for the roundabouts that are going to be constructed in Galt. Number 4, hold an I Love My Park event at Walker Park. Number 5, hold the annual volunteer recognition luncheon. Number 6, develop an intranet for employees to enhance internal communication. Number 7, launch the City of Galt Twitter account. Number 8, launch a city mobile app for residents to obtain information about the city and report problems within the city. Number 9, develop, distribute, and collect from each of their employees a list of the City of Galt's strengths and accomplishments, internal weaknesses and problems, and potential three-tier goal. Is it 3 tiers?
Spelling. It's supposed to be 3 years.
Okay. 3-year goals for the use at the January 2014 Strategic Planning Retreat. And finally, number 10, revitalize, relaunch, and promote the TIP 411 program to take full advantage of communication with the public.
So I think we have our work cut out for us, but like before, we're up to the challenge, and every month as we progress, we will give you a report on things as they're going. Okay. So now we're to the results of regional development fee comparative analysis prepared by the San Joaquin Partnership, SIP. And that would be you, Sandy.
Thank you and good evening. Last year, the San Joaquin Partnership requested Galt's participation in a comparative analysis of development fees that were charged for various land use types. San Joaquin Partnership is a nonprofit, private-public economic development corporation that assists businesses and industries to locate in San Joaquin County specifically. It serves a similar function to the Sacramento Area Commerce and Trade Organization that we're more familiar with, although it's a much SACTO covers a 6-county region. This is just San Joaquin County. 21 jurisdictions were selected for this study based on what San Joaquin Partnership considered to be comparable and competitive jurisdictions for employment projects specifically. 8 jurisdictions in San Joaquin County were included in the study, and there were 13 communities selected outside of San Joaquin County. For comparison communities, they had Livermore and Pleasanton in Alameda County, Galt and Elk Grove in Sacramento County, San Joaquin County, pretty much all of their, or most of their incorporated cities, plus a couple of unincorporated areas of Oakwood Lake and Mountain House. Solano County includes Fairfield and Vacaville, and Yolo County, West Sacramento, or Stanislaus County, Ceres, Modesto, Patterson, Turlock, and an unincorporated area that they were not specific about. And Yolo County is West Sacramento and Woodland. A copy of the entire report was reprinted with permission from San Joaquin Partnership and provided in advance to City Council members. Printed copies can be purchased from San Joaquin Partnership. Their website is on the PowerPoint, or you can just Google their name. The graphics in the PowerPoint were also excerpted with their permission. A printed copy is on file with the City Clerk's office for public review if anyone else is interested. So a qualifying statement, which is also cited in the report, is that it's hard to compare the cost of land development from one jurisdiction to another. Each community is unique in the level of service and the quality of life it provides to its residents, employees, and visitors. In addition, communities differ in the way they charge for pre-development services, such as zoning entitlements, environmental and subdivision entitlements, as well as how they address necessary infrastructure and public service costs. However, the report illustrates a general comparison between typical fees that are collected at building permit stage for these 21 different communities in the region. For all of the comparisons, the report notes that the overall average fee that's cited in the upper right-hand side of the graph was calculated without the unincorporated areas of San Joaquin County and Stanislaus County because of various variances for sewer, water, storm drain in those jurisdictions. So the overall average does not include the unincorporated areas. In the single-family residential category, Galt ranked 9th out of the 21 jurisdictions for the lowest fees, so we're 9th lowest. The overall average development fee was $54,527. Galt was $50,615.74. That does not include the current temporary fee reduction program that is going on. This is just our standard fees. So our fees right now are actually even lower. Since that time of the report, the school district, JPA, has actually reduced its fee by on not quite $2,000 for this scenario. The fire impacts in fees did go up by $183, but regardless, Galt's comparative ranking in the region was not affected for this or any of the scenarios. We still stayed in 9th lowest position. For multifamily residential fees, Galt's adjusted per unit building permit fee cost. This assumed a 10-unit condominium project for Galt. I had some other assumptions for different communities, just kind of whatever fit in perfectly with that community. Was $33,373. That was just below the overall average of the 21 communities. We came in at the 11th lowest of the 21 jurisdictions. Unfortunately, retail fees were not quite as competitive. Galt's ranking for retail fees is about 26% above the average of the 21 jurisdictions. We ranked 5th highest for retail fees. Most of the difference is due to regional and local traffic fees. For example, Elk Grove and Galt are subject to Sacramento County's Measure A regional traffic fee, which comes to over $263,000 for the type of project that we evaluated for this example, which is a 65,000 square foot retail space. Some jurisdictions have no regional traffic fees at all, so there's an immediate discrepancy of $263,000. San Joaquin jurisdictions pay a regional fee that is about $87,000 less than Galt's. Alameda County cities pay nearly $165,000 less. In addition, Galt's local traffic impact fee is the second highest among the comparator cities. It represents nearly 64% of the total fee. City Council, as we just saw, adopted a strategic plan objective to consider options for reducing this traffic fee in the upcoming TCIP update. And then in the interim, next item on the agenda, staff is actually recommending a temporary program for a fee reduction pending that update. In the office fee category, Galt was much more competitive. We're, again, 11th lowest than it was for retail stores. Galt's fee of $806,000 was only about 86% of the overall average fee. And then when it comes to industrial, we should be very competitive because the city's development fees are only 44% of the overall average. However, and Galt's fees were actually the lowest of all the incorporated cities. Only the unincorporated areas were lower. Unfortunately, there are other market variables at play that adversely affect Galt's competitiveness in the industrial sector, including proximity and easy access to major transportation hubs such as shipping ports, rail yards, and major highways. And then last of all is the industrial manufacturing fees. Galt's fee is 69% of the overall average, so we're 8th lowest in that category. So in conclusion, based on this third-party fee comparison, it appears that Galt's fees are reasonably competitive in the categories of residential development. Retail fees clearly on the high end, but City Council already has adopted a strategic plan objective to, with a goal to lower that fee. That temporary reduction, at least, is also likely to make Galt even more competitive than it already is in the office and industrial categories. And as part of the upcoming 2009 Traffic Capital Improvement Program update, staff will be evaluating all the planned capital improvements cited in that document, as well as investigating alternative methods to finance those improvements. And we expect that to be done in 9 to 12 months. So like I said, in the meantime, we are recommending an interim program that I'll talk about in the next agenda item. But before we move on to that item, are there any questions that I can try to address?
Council? Okay, so with that, we'll go on to the next one, the temporary fee reduction incentive program for non-residential development. And back to you again.
Right. As I just discussed in the prior presentation, we are at a competitive disadvantage in the region when it comes to non-residential development. Probably best illustrated by two main factors. The first is retail leakage. We have significant retail leakage. It basically means that Galt residents are spending more for products than local businesses are capturing. It suggests that there's unmet demand in the city and that the community could probably support additional stores that supply those goods that are in high demand. The second main factor is obviously the relatively minimal amount of industrial and office development the city has been able to attract in the past several years. So with regard to retail leakage, the 2011 Buxton study showed that just pretty much the immediate city limits of Galt, we experience over $2 million every year in estimated retail sales leakage to other communities and to the internet. However, the existence of retail leakage does not necessarily translate into retail opportunity. There are several other market conditions that have to be considered. First, we have strong competitors in nearby markets that dominate the market for certain types of products or stores. Obviously, our location between the larger population centers of Elk Grove and Lodi make it difficult to compete for retailers who rely on a larger base of their core customers. Second, consumer buying habits. We have a large number of residents who commute to their jobs, and they tend to do much of their regular shopping on the way home from work or during their lunch hour, so they do it outside the jurisdiction. or they do it online. And lastly, Galt's retail fee structure, which we just discussed, creates another barrier because the fees are approximately 25% above the average for these 21 jurisdictions that were discussed. For industrial sector, Galt also struggles to attract industrial manufacturing businesses that have a lot of good jobs. Again, mostly because they have a need for access to good distribution facilities, a port or major transportation centers, or large population centers like the San Francisco Bay Area. Unfortunately, nearby jurisdictions like Tracy, Stockton, and West Sacramento have kind of locked up the market for industrial. They have much better proximity to the larger Bay Area consumer population. They have nearby shipping ports and then multiple highways and interstates that trucks can access easily. Even though Galt's permit fees for industrial buildings are already 30% below comparator jurisdictions in the region, there really hasn't been enough incentive so far to lure many manufacturing businesses to Galt. One solution is to become more attractive for large retail, office, and industrial-based businesses is to consider offering additional incentives. One of the goals that Council talked about earlier tonight was having staff present options for reducing the city's non-residential traffic impact fees. Along those lines, we have funding in the current year budget to update the TCIP, and the goal is to reduce those fees by about 25%, which would make us at least average in the region. That process, however, could take up to a year. Therefore, staff's recommending a temporary fee reduction program until we accomplish that update and establish permanent new fees. It would be if staff's fear is that without such a program, we have several pending retail projects, or we have a couple at least, that like McDonald's and Ace Hardware, that could delay their construction schedules in anticipation of us reducing our fees. Rather than delaying the generation of more sales tax, but jobs and property tax and other spin-off benefits, the interim program would allow those to move forward with the sort of guarantee that they would have at least as much as the permanent fee would end up being. It's important to note that Walmart is not one of the retailers that's likely to delay their construction. We already have a fee agreement with them. They agreed to lock in the fees in 2010, and they've actually already paid those transportation fees. So eligibility for the program. We're recommending that it be available to any applicant who obtains site plan review entitlement and a subsequent building permit for new construction of a retail store, office, or eligible industrial or institutional use during the term of the program. We're asking that Council authorize the city manager to make those eligibility determinations. For example, an expansion of existing business might be eligible if it's going to create additional retail sales display area or job generation, but just a storage room would not. Eligible projects would be required to pay only 75% of the current traffic impact fee at permit issuance. The rest of the fee would be deferred until the CIP is updated in about a year. If at that time the new fee comes in less than a 25% reduction than the current fee, that incremental difference would be repaid to the traffic fund from the future sales tax generated by that business. So the applicant would not be on the hook for that. We would actually repay the traffic fund from the sales tax, additional sales tax revenue that's coming in from that business. If the amount is equal to 25%, then their obligation would have been satisfied and we would waive any deferred amount. And if the revised fee turns out to be more than 25%, if we end up going 30% or more, the city would refund the amount of the fee overpayment to the entity that owned the property at the time. The original fee was paid, but that revenue would also come from the sales tax generated by that same business. So they might have to wait a little bit until they've generated enough revenues to repay themselves. The timing for reimbursement will depend on tax reporting timeframes and the amount of revenue generated by the business. If it's approved, the program would be in effect immediately and will end when the new traffic impact fees are effective, which is 60 days after the TCIP is adopted. We're expecting about a year for that process. They would need to get a building permit application submitted within that time frame and pay 100% of the plan check fees up front. If they have submitted a building permit but not obtained one before the new traffic fees become effective, we're recommending an additional 90 days for them to finish that process. And then the city manager would have the authority to extend that time if there's something that's outside of their control, like a Caltrans encroachment permit or something. The amount of the temporary traffic fee reduction, again, is 25% of the applicable fee. The tables in the staff report show the current fees, northeast area, not northeast area, and what the recommended fees would be, the 25% reduction. A California Environmental Quality Act exemption has been prepared for this project, as noted in the staff report. Staff has provided some alternatives in the staff report for council's consideration. I'm already running a little long, so I won't go into those unless someone has questions about them. In terms of fiscal impact, this program is proposed simply to address the interim period between now and when City Council ultimately adopts the new transportation capital improvement program, and those traffic fees are reduced. Rather than risk the potential delay of pending projects, the reduced fees are recommended to be implemented now, and then staff will make the necessary adjustments in the TCIP before it's presented back to City Council with the final fees. There are only 2 retail developments already in the entitlement process that would be eligible for the program. That reduction in traffic fees would be about $65,700. To be conservative and overestimate the potential fiscal impact of the program, staff assumed 3 additional possible projects totaling about 20,000 square feet. If that happened, the reduction in fees would total $72,400, bringing the overall total to $138,100. However, staff notes that to the extent that the program stimulates new commercial development, it would also benefit by the corresponding increase in property and sales tax revenues. So that concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you, Sandy. Questions, anyone?
Yes, Sandy, you made a comment that in the event that the fee adopted in the new TCIP is greater than the 25% that the refund would be due to the property owner. Is that the property owner at what time? And the only reason I raise that issue is you could have a person in escrow pull a building permit, title changes after the fact, but I don't know when that time frame is.
Our intent was that the entity who paid the fee originally would be the one entitled to the refund.
Okay, so that may not be
So the property owner at the time that the building permit is pulled, or if it's not the property owner, then whoever paid those fees.
Whoever paid the fees, yeah, because you could, yeah. Conceivably, the property owner can be different than the permit.
Yeah, if you're in escrow and you went
Yeah.
and paid the fees, you're right.
Yeah.
So
I think it's a great idea. Jason and I discussed this a long time, months ago, about the idea that of reducing the residential fees or the non-residential fees. I was surprised at where it came in on the comparator cities. I mean, and we had initially talked about a 25%, I think, 25 to 30%, and it was interesting to see that it actually did come in accordance with the San Joaquin study, at least with those cities. I don't know how it compares up in, maybe some of the SACOG regional cities, but it certainly demonstrates that, at least in this market area, that the city could be a little bit more competitive. Well, I think it's a good idea.
Council members, everybody okay? Okay, can I have could you read the recommended action, please, Liz?
Adopt a resolution approving the filing of a California Environmental Quality Act exemption, authorizing the initiation of a temporary fee reduction incentive program to encourage construction of a new non-residential buildings such as retail, office, or industrial manufacturing space, and authorizing the city manager to determine the eligibility of projects based on the criteria noted in the staff report.
So moved.
Second.
Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Now we're on to the Public Works Department, the extension of 2007 collection services agreement with California Waste Recovery Systems. Steve.
Madam Mayor, I've asked Dolores Martinez to give you a very brief presentation on this item, and I note in the audience are Dave Backer resident Jack Fiore with Cal Waste, in the event that you have any questions of them. Dolores?
Madam Mayor?
Oh, don't be
We don't bite, we promise. We're kind of far enough away from you, so
Right.
you got a buffer here.
What we are bringing before you this evening is the consideration of the extension of the operations for the 2007 collection services agreement with California Waste Recovery Systems. Our recommendation are as follows. First of all, we ask that you consider and authorize the city manager to exercise an option for a 3-year extension of existing contract. That means everything would remain status quo as is. The second one may supersede the first one in that we are asking you to authorize the city manager to negotiate supplemental terms and conditions for a longer contract and potential transfer station agreement. Third, establish a council sub. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Establish a council subcommittee to provide direction regarding. I'm nervous. I apologize. Okay. Establish a council subcommittee to provide direction regarding an extension greater than 3 years and a potential transfer station agreement. Currently, the current contract allows a term of July 1st, 2007 through February 28th, 2016. They also provide that between June 1st and July 31st that the city may offer another extension. Third, that you can go ahead and you can provide for us to offer, how do I want to explain it? To offer an extension of
Okay, I'm going to reopen the council meeting, and I know I really don't have to say this, but everybody keep Dolores in your thoughts and your prayers this evening. Sandy, is someone going to give this report?
Yes, I'll endeavor to pick up where we left off. Apologize for the interruption, and obviously our thoughts and prayers are with Dolores. She is recovering from some recent surgery, and yes, tonight wasn't a good night. I was planning to make the presentation, but early this afternoon, talked with her, and she says, I'm ready. And so I certainly always try to put staff forward on their items, so I apologize for the delay. Basically, I'm just going to back up and recap this slide that you have an existing 5-year contract that will run through February of, the math isn't right here. You have a current contract that will run through 2016. And that contract includes a clause that allows the city in its exclusive discretion to, in a 2-month period that we're in right now, to offer a 3-year extension that would take the contract to 2019 with Cal Waste Recovery. And then they would have 20 days to accept or reject that offer. Now, that offer is the existing contract terms with no particular change, would stay status quo for an additional 3 years. Right now, we are recommending that the well, before I get to our recommendations, we did receive a recent proposal from Cal Waste after we made initial contact, had a meeting on June 3rd to talk about the potential option for a 3-year extension, and did open the idea up of that if there were additional incentives that might be available, the city may be willing to entertain a further extension in exchange for some more favorable contract terms. Certainly would not want to preclude those opportunities with a 3-year extension. Subsequently, recently, I believe council was copied on a proposal to staff for a possible 10-year extension. That is a preliminary proposal that identified some possible incentives and opportunities for the city to consider, and included in that would be the possibility of citing a transfer facility. That obviously, if that option were to be considered, that would have to go through all of the permitting processes for the city. But the city does have property that could be conducive to that. For instance, we own 300 acres adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant that have been identified by the Cal Waste proposal as a possible opportunity for a co-located facility. We are recommending that you do authorize the city manager to exercise the current contract's 3-year option, which would protect all of the favorable clauses that are in play and provide rate stabilization. But we're also asking that you would authorize the city manager to further negotiate the supplemental terms and conditions for consideration of a longer-term contract, such as the one proposed by Cal Waste, and that could include discussion of a possible transfer station agreement as a separate item. Lastly, given some of the policy ramifications and land use issues, we would recommend that the council consider establishing a subcommittee of 2 members to provide direction to staff and input regarding a possible extension greater than 3 years and any potential transfer station agreement. And that would be the extent of our presentation. We would open it up for questions. And again, representatives of Cal Waste are here tonight should you have any specific questions. We did not intend to get into the terms of the proposal tonight other than to get authorization to explore further the proposal and negotiate those out of the open session.
Okay, do we ask public hearing? No. Okay, okay, you're right, it's on the water meter. Okay, staff, any questions? I mean, council, any questions? Sorry.
I think it's a great idea. I like the idea of the extension with the possibilities of a transfer station. That's something that I've thought the city has needed for a number of years. This goes back over 20 years ago when we initially discussed that, and the city considered it, and for various reasons it didn't occur. I'm for the 3-year extension, and in the interim, I'd certainly like to serve on the council committee on the longer extension and potential transfer station. I think that could be very beneficial to the city.
And I'll just put my 2 cents worth in too. I'd like to be on the committee also. Can you, anyone else?
I think it's a good idea. The proposal that we've all been provided was very extensive and looked very good. I have listed the current facility and just move along really well. Had a good tour of it. So I think we need to move forward.
Yeah, you did a great job on getting that together, and you're all moved in now, correct, you guys? And so Galt is now home. Awesome. So would you like to read the recommendation, please?
Authorize the city manager.
Do you have something you want to say?
Well, after Liz reads the item, I have some recommendations on how to proceed with the motion.
Okay.
Oh, after. I'm sorry.
I thought this was going to be one now.
Yeah.
Authorize the city manager to exercise an option for a 3-year extension of existing contract terms and conditions for the current agreement with California Waste Recovery Systems. Number 2, authorize the city manager to negotiate supplemental terms and conditions for consideration of a longer contract extension and a potential transfer station agreement for subsequent council consideration. And number 3, establish a council subcommittee to provide direction to staff regarding potential terms for a collection services agreement extension greater than 3 years and a potential transfer station agreement.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I'd recommend that you take the first 2 motions together. And then on the last one, which requires the council to nominate 2 members to serve, to establish the subcommittee and then insert the names of the 2 members that you want to serve on the subcommittee as a separate motion.
Okay. So on the first 2 points, do I have a
So moved. Second.
call for the vote, please?
Vice Mayor Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. And then on the third one, Councilmember Campion and I expressed a desire to be on the committee. Is there anyone else that?
I'd like to nominate Councilman Campion and Mayor Powers for this committee.
Second?
Is that the way you do it? Okay, and then we just call for the vote? Okay, call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Okay. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for the tour. Great tour.
Yeah. Was everyone toured so far?
I haven't had a chance. Dave called me. I just
Okay.
went out there.
Good. I think all the rest of us have been
I'll be
out there.
Yeah.
Now we're on the consideration of options for the installation of water meters and related payment and billing issues.
Madam Mayor, with us tonight is my predecessor and has been retained as a special projects coordinator, and this is his last major project in that we've already recently awarded the Twin Cities roundabouts, which was another project that Rich was helping out, particularly with respect to the widening of Twin Cities Road segment related to Walmart, and we appreciate him being willing to stay on and do some heavy lifting here, and I told him I'd hide behind his skirts on this one. Actually, we've been closely conversing, and Richard's going to provide, this is a rather lengthy item. We are going to have a rather lengthy in terms of number of pages on a PowerPoint presentation. We'll apologize in advance, but there are some weighty policy issues that we need some guidance on, or at least concurrence with, that will allow us to proceed to finalize. And one of those is making a decision on whether to go with, similar to an earlier item under public comment tonight, of which vendor to select based on qualifications or based on price. And there's sometimes a trade-off there of you want good quality, but you have limitations on budget. And in this case, we've made some difficult decisions and been working with staff and with the top two proposal selections, and we're making recommendations that we proceed with one of those tonight. And without any further stealing of Richard's thunder, I'm going to turn it over to Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Winkler, and Madam Mayor, members of the council. It's nice to be here again. I see you've updated the chambers. It looks very nice. Congratulations. That's always a good thing to keep things freshened up in this room. Tonight's discussion, we have some specific goals, because I think as you'll see as we go through the presentation, there's a lot of balls in the air on this whole project. Dealing with water meters is not exactly everybody's favorite subject. I like it, but that's me. And a lot of things are interrelated. And so in order to make some good planning decisions and implementation decisions, we need to kind of winnow down some of these variables. And we've brought forward some items that we think are key, that we're looking for direction, not final action by any means, but direction on which way to go. So with that, I'm going to recap those 4 items, and then we'll get to the presentation. The first recommendation is on who to award the contract to, and I'll go through the process we use to select and make the recommendation. The second has to do with everybody's second favorite topic, is how to pay for all this, and specifically on charging past customers for their meter. The third one is to an incentive regarding duplexes, and I'll get in more detail on that. And then talk a bit about the implementation and specifically the issue of a comparative bill. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of these slides pretty quickly. So if I say something too fast for you and you want me to stop and explain something, please go ahead and stop me. But you've seen much of this before. This is largely a state mandate, although Galt actually has been somewhat proactive in this arena, going back to the 1990s, where the city of Galt started installing water meters on commercial properties at no charge to the property owner at that time, and then later started charging new residential customers for their meter. And in 2004, when the law changed again, the city actually started telling new residences to install the meter. So you've got a mixture of situations out there where you have customers that have their service that's an old valve in the ground with no meter box at all, You have customers that have a meter box that's sort of ready for a meter or quite ready for a meter, and you have people who've actually put their meter in. So you have right now two classes of customers who are on their payments. You've got some customers, both commercial and residential, who are paying a metered rate, and you have the majority that are paying a flat rate. In 2008, they retained HDR, an engineering firm, to do a study on both rates and the meter implementation program, and the decision at that time was to do what was called Phase 1, which are basically the post-92 people who paid for their meter. And there was no plan to go forward with the rest of the folks. I do want to make one correction, by the way, on the slide. I think there's a pointer thing on here. This one. This should say mandatory for all urban water utilities. And I believe that's defined as 3,000 or more connections. I wanted to just clarify that in case somebody is a real Sharpie on this law. One of the last things that I was involved in last year was to come back and revisit that HDR report and realize obviously the city hadn't done anything with it, and made a recommendation to the council, which was approved last year in August, to issue an RFP, a request for proposals, for a turnkey contract to plan the project, install everything, furnish all the equipment, test it, implement it, and finance the project, and do the whole city. So why a turnkey project? That's a relatively fast implementation. You're not out there hiring engineering consultants to do a lot of work that may or may not be really pertinent to what you want to get done when in the final end. And I've heard some horror stories about that whole process. The firm would do an audit where they go through and look at all the parcels and services out there ahead of time, map them all with GPS-type technology, convert it into your mapping system so you can readily see where everything is. One of the things that often happens in these kind of audits is you find parcels that aren't being built for whatever reason. That's one way you can increase revenue when you go through a complete audit. You can minimize the upfront capital because these projects typically include the financing, and we ask for that as part of the RFP. You can get performance guarantees, and overall you wind up with reducing your cost to implement the project. Why the whole city is really is a policy issue, quite frankly. The law doesn't require us to do this for a number of years on the entire city, but when you look at the situation where you have now potentially a large portion of your customers, and I mentioned before that homes since 2004 are being metered, that's only a few hundred homes. But when you do all the ones going back to 92 or 90, I think when you actually started charging, it'll be slightly over half of your customers will be on meters. The other half would still be on flat rate. There is always going to be somebody who's upset that either I don't have a meter or I do have a meter and I'm paying more, I'm not. I wasn't complaining about paying less, but everybody's going to assume that, well, I could probably pay less if I had a meter, so I save water. So that is potentially a divisive issue for your community. From a technology and cost standpoint, going with the entire town allows you to efficiently implement what's called a fixed network, where you would read all the meters from a central location. You don't need from software, from a computer. You don't need to send out meter readers. You don't need to hire meter readers to do that thing. Whether they're reading it by, it's called touch read or drive-by system, you just don't need that. When HDR looked at this back in 2008, they kind of waffled on which way to go. The technology has improved quite a bit, as I think most people would have assumed. And of course, labor costs haven't gone down. So the shifting to a fixed network is much more palatable now than it was back in 2008. I think going back and looking at that report, they had estimated the cost of a fixed network was over $300,000. In the proposals we've received now, it's less than 100. So there really is an economy of scale here and time, actually. That in that time the technology's improved and the cost has come down. So it's really a no-brainer to look at putting in a fixed network. And we've estimated around $40,000 to $60,000 in lower costs. That if we were only to do phase one, you could put in a fixed network, but you're kind of wasting it because you're not really utilizing all of it. And if you were to not put in the fixed network and save that money, you would be spending this kind of money on meter reading. Of course, maximizing your water conservation potential. There is, one of these state mandates out there that relates to the installation of meters requires a 20% reduction in water consumption by 2020, I think it is. It's a state goal. There's a lot of hoops to go through to show why you may not be achieving that goal, but having meters is really key to even being able to figure out if you're meeting that goal. And while there's no specific penalties associated with not meeting the goal, not trying or not being able to show what's going on does put you at risk of losing state funding for not only water but wastewater type projects as well. And there's another deadline on that. There's actually two different deadlines depending on which code section you're looking at. One of them's already passed and the other one is like in 2015. So the other point about water conservation, well, actually two other points about water conservation is the reduction and deferral of capital improvements. If you can reduce water consumption, you are in a much better position to defer putting in new wells associated with growth. You perhaps in the long run could even not have as many wells. What are wells going for nowadays? 2 million a pop when you on site and everything else. Those are costs that you can defer. And of course the groundwater resource. You're fortunate in this county that the groundwater depletion hasn't been as severe as it has been in San Joaquin County, for example, but it is an issue that's being looked at and over time will be an issue. So just conserving groundwater is an important point. And I already mentioned the state and the funding issues. So we put out an RFP back in November, which was to, as I said, plan, furnish, install, test, implement, and finance the project. I talked a bit about what it included already, the fixed network, software, obviously tying it into the city's billing system, including customer access to their consumption data, which is another point about having what's called advanced metering infrastructure. One of the things that's getting more prevalent now in the water industry is trying to compare services that people provide, companies or governments provide, when you think about your cell phone bill or your cable TV bill or whatever, things like that, your ability to go online and see what you're doing, customize your payments and do all these things with customer interaction is not typically seen in a typical government utility like water or sewer. And one of the things with these modern systems now is that they are trying to step up that level of customer interaction. Now, we didn't ask for a full customer information system building and all that. That's a whole other realm of effort that you could certainly look at some point, but at least giving the customers access to their consumption data. And I should point out that with a fixed network, you don't just get, oh, I used X amount of water last month. You can get data on a daily basis. You can even some points get down to hourly or less and really look at how your water is being used in your own home. And when you get a high bill, you can look at it yourself and see what's going on. Maybe you see that there's a whole lot of water being used at times you don't think should be there, and you find out you've got a sprinkler running that you didn't know was going in the middle of the night or something, or how long it was going. Similar for leak detection. These systems have algorithms that look at periods of time where there should be some no flow, and if there's still flow, 24 hours of flow, something's wrong. It can give you a warning. So there's a lot more in terms of customer interaction that come with this kind of a system that you're not doing now at all. The RFP was again not your typical type process where we said, here's what we want, you tell us what you can do to give it to us. We really said, here's what we think we want, but you tell us what you've got that convinces us that your system is the best and your installation process is the best and all that good stuff. So, having done that, before we put out the RFP, we did go back to the council in November and had the council review and approve the evaluation criteria, which is on the slide here. You'll notice that cost is a major component, but it's not the only factor. And this is what was used to evaluate the proposals that we received. We received 4 proposals. The companies had almost 2 months to put them together. And during that time, we had a meeting in this room to kind of go over the RFP, and we had questions and issued addendums to clarify things. And we received 4 proposals listed on the slide. Global Water Resources, National Meter, Siemens, and Corix Utilities. And as you can see, we have the cost that they had included in the proposal as proposed. And again, this is what was the raw numbers that they submitted with their proposal. There were no adjustments made on these figures. And so Global was at $5 million, and the annual cost service charge was $67,000. National Meter was the lowest at $3.6 million, with their annual charges at $27,000. And then Siemens and Corix were upwards of $6 million with various annual costs. Siemens and Corix are 2 companies that do performance-type contracts. Siemens included Neptune meters and Neptune meter reading system, the AMI system. Neptune actually is the current meter that is your standard meter. They had a very strong proposal, but it was, as you can see, the higher end of the cost scale. Corix proposed another integrated system from Census, both software and meters and the equipment, very similar to the Siemens proposal, slightly higher price. Global was a combination of Neptune meters and another radio called Aclara, and their own software and integration. National Meter was a combination of Badger meters, which is another large meter company, along with radios from a company called Itron. It's very big in the electric industry. And they had 2 different software packages. I'll talk more about that in a minute. National, as I show on the slide there, National is a manufacturer's representative. They normally, like any other, in our world, in public works, we don't go to the store to buy this kind of stuff. You work through a distributor. Most of the public really can't go to a distributor to buy things, but in the industrial sector, manufacturers' representatives who act as distributors are the typical source for heavy equipment and specialized equipment. So National does that for various water-related companies. As I mentioned, Itron and Badger, they sell brass and all kinds of other things related to the water industry. Global is sort of interesting. They are a private company that operates a number of utilities in Arizona. And similar to, like in California, you see Cal Water is a company that, a private company that are regulated by the PUC, and they provide water service, I know, in Stockton, San Jose, and other places up and down the valley. But what Global has done is tried to step up their game with engineering and technology to really make their utilities much more efficient. And as they've done that, they've said, hey, we have a product we can sell. And so they've formed another part of their company that actually goes out and does exactly this kind of project. They also do customer service. They can do billing. They have that package they offer to some utilities, or they offer to various utilities, and I know some in California are doing that. And they have what's called asset management or maintenance management type support as well they can do. But the portion we're talking about tonight is just the meter install and the reading software. and they have several installations in California they've done. And so reviewing all that information, the city held an interview with those two companies. And I should mention that the proposals were reviewed by Public Works staff along with another Public Works official from another city. And then with the interviews, we had city administrative staff and finance and IT staffing on that as well. And following the interviews, there were some concerns about National's proposal. And frankly, I think the review committee within Public Works really didn't like their proposal as well in terms of the services and the equipment and a variety of things that they were proposing. But frankly, at the lowest cost, we had to look at them closer. I mean, that's just a reality. Even in spite of our matrix on scoring, where 35% of the score was based on price, when you at that big of a difference, they deserve to be looked at more carefully. And so we spent quite a bit of time over the last few months working with National to evaluate their proposal further. And at the end of the day, we don't want to recommend National, but we think Global is the proper choice for Galt. As I mentioned, their original quote was, their proposal was for $3.6 million. There were some things that weren't included. They didn't include cutting asphalt and concrete, and they said that would be an additional cost. And so in trying to evaluate really what the true cost of the project would wind up being, we took what's called a schedule of values. And so both Global and National separately and sequentially gave us a schedule of values of detailed components of the project. And one of the things that we did was made sure that we looked at the quantities and put the quantities on an equal basis, because they all made different assumptions about how much of what they would need. For example, like National assumed they wouldn't be replacing all the meters. But we had asked them in the RFP, price everything as if you're replacing all the old meters. I should come back to that point too, by the way. The old meters you have are old. Granted, there's been a few put in since 2004. The oldest ones are probably starting to approach their questionable life. But the commercial meters that were installed back in the 90s, the only ones that have been replaced are ones that have actually failed. Galt has not had a regular replacement program. So we assume those would all get replaced. And we made sure that when we compared the pricing that we use the same quantities of meters, for example. So we were looking at apples and apples on their quotes. And another area that Nationals was pretty weak in was the construction management. And they were basically going to hire a subcontractor to come in and do the work. We asked, well, who's going to be in charge of the project? Well, they're going to have a job superintendent on the job during the course of work. So where are you going to be? Well, we'll be available by phone or email. We just didn't think that was adequate. The equipment they were proposing, again, as I mentioned, the RFP really didn't specify a lot of things that we had to have. If I was going to go back and redo it, I probably would have put this piece in because it was recommended by HDR that we use a licensed radio system. There's basically two types of radio systems out there, licensed and unlicensed. Even though the phrase is unlicensed, they still have to follow FCC guidelines for what they're doing. But HDR was pretty specific. Of all the things, there's a lot of, as I mentioned, a lot of waffling in their report, but one thing that they were specific about was use a licensed system. So that was a concern with the National proposal. We did some more research on the radio system that they have. It's had issues. Did a lot of internet research and found utilities that had put in Itron systems and wound up replacing quite a bit of it. Itron was very good about warranty issues and offering replacements, but just the hassle of going through all that was fairly expensive. I did run into one utility in the East Coast that had a $2 million audit done of their new meter project. There was 60,000 meters in this project, and there were problems with the equipment. And Itron supposedly fixed all those. They claim they have them all fixed, but when we asked them about trying to get a better warranty, there wasn't anything offered there. So we had issues with concerns about that. It's a risk that we didn't think Galt necessarily want to take. The National hasn't done an actual turnkey project like this. They're acting as a part of a team. I know in Lodi, for example, they're working down there on some verification work, and they're providing meters. The proposal they had from National was software from several vendors. So there's always concerns about integration of software when you've got different vendors involved, and one makes a change and later on there's a glitch that you have to deal with later. The parcel base, I mentioned that earlier, that having an actual mapped tied into your GIS type system that shows you where everything is an easy way for the city in the long term to make sure that everybody's still metered. And there's a 1 meter per parcel, and you can see that so easily on a map. You can't see that looking through just a table of addresses. And they didn't have that. They said they could do it. They could add it to their proposal or to their package. And their pricing, as we've adjusted it later on, did include that, but it would be the first time they've done it, possibly the only time, depending on what else they do. So we had concerns about that in the long term. And then at the end of the agenda report, there's a long list of details that we thought were differences between the two proposals that led us to really look at Global as being the preferred contractor on this. And I should point out that when we went through and did that apples-to-apples comparison on the cost, we would have expected the national proposal to come in close to $4 million. Global's, as I mentioned earlier, was $5 million. That was basically like a not-to-exceed type project. In the interview, they kind of said, hey, we'll do the entire thing for this price, no change orders, no nothing, this is it. We'll cover it all. It included full-time construction support and oversight. It was a licensed radio system, and their warranties were superior to Nationals in terms of what they would cover and reimburse us for costs. If there's a meter that goes out and it's within warranty, if we go out and take it out, they would reimburse us for that labor cost to do that. They've had several successful turnkey projects. I personally spoke with a number of their clients in California. Trung Trin on staff did as well, and they got great reviews. They do guarantee 100% on their data collection and the reads. The software is integrated from them, so there's no finger pointing at all going on with potentially the software. They almost invented this parcel-based GIS implementation. They have a work order system that's tied into that, so when the system detects a problem with a meter, it issues a work order to us to say, hey, go check this out. And so when you take all of that and the fact that we did look at their proposal and they had indicated about $1 million worth of installation variables that we thought we could chip away at. And so we negotiated a lower cost to about $4.6 million by basically allocating risk. And so what we said was, okay, the city would take the risk on quantities. We don't know exactly how many meters need to be put in, but so you work with a price on a per meter basis, and we would pay whatever the number actually is. The same thing for the box lids and for new boxes. But the things that are really your expertise, the network itself and the software, the performance, we want that to be a fixed price. If you need more data collectors, that's on you. And they agreed to that. So, as I said, we were able to reduce the cost to about $4.6 million by looking at that. We also asked about reducing the annual cost because it wasn't the highest of the four that we received, but it was at the upper end. And they said they could reduce by 20%, $13,400 by eliminating the customer web portal. And we thought, well, we'll let you know, but we don't think that's a good deal. We think that's a key part of this system to get the customers access to their own information, and we would suggest that's not a savings that we should entertain. So, our recommendation number one is that we ask the council to direct the city manager to complete contract negotiations, and we would come back to you in August, probably the second meeting in August, to do this, to get it approved. Again, this is one of those huge variables in implementing the project, and we didn't want to go to all the way to the point of negotiating a contract if the council had concerns over the direction we were headed. So before we get to the other items, I thought I'd summarize the program costs based on a $4.6 million capital cost. The annual financing cost would be approximately $400,000. I should point out that we did get the proposals back in, as I mentioned, in January. Interest rates have creeped up a little bit since then, so we have not updated that yet. It includes replacement of all existing meters, as I mentioned, which is part of the audit. We would be able to make a determination as which ones could be kept, so the price would come down a bit because of that. But again, for basis of comparison and discussion tonight, I just used the full $1.6 million and all the quantities that were in the RFP, and broke it down by categories. So we have the component meters on the radio, this is the part that goes out to the customer's site. This is the installation work, put everything in, installation costs for meters, and the share of fixed costs. So the network itself, all the project oversight, overhead and profit, that kind of stuff that goes into this whole thing. I'm sorry. The fixed costs are in this row, and of course the total. So phase one, which is about 3,300 meters. Phase two, which is the 392 customers that are not meter ready. And then replacements. I mentioned, all those meters we look at replacing. There's about that many meters out there.
When were those meters initially put into service of the 901? I mean, when did they start putting those in?
1990, I believe it was.
I thought that's when they just established the fee for the collection to pay for that.
They established a fee for the residential, but
okay,
commercial meters are included in there.
Most of those 900 are the commercial meters.
Those are mostly commercial then,
There's about, I've forgotten the exact number. I think it's about 400 residential and the rest are commercial.
Yeah, because that didn't come on until I think much later.
The 400 residential started in 2004.
Right.
And as we've heard earlier, they were pretty much done by 2007 and 8.
Okay.
So they're pushing 7 years.
Okay.
So taking their global schedule of values and prorating the fixed costs by the number of meters that are up here, this is how the project kind of shakes out. 1.7 million for phase one, phase two, 2.3 million, and 575 for the replacement side of things. And part of my logic in breaking this out was that really replacing old stuff is a utility cost. You really can't just pass that on to any individual customer. That's part of your rate. That's what your rates are for. The phase one folks have paid for meters through a direct charge, or there were transfers into the meter fund from some of the other fees. I don't know the details on that, but about of that 1.7 million, about 800 and I want to say 805,000 was actually the meter charge was collected on the building permit. And we have a list of all those addresses and how much was paid by each one of those customers. So this is kind of background information. So paying for all this, I will say, was a great subject of debate in our favorite city to the south for years, literally years. And I think by trying to tackle this head on, this is one of the things that really is something that needs to be decided at some point. And we'd like to get some direction because obviously it's going to affect how we do any other work in the future on this whole issue. So there's really fundamentally two choices. You can absorb the costs within the water utility, and we have the meter reserve. Oops, I keep hitting the wrong button. I apologize. 1.7 million, which is on cash on hand right now. We have some reserves. We're going to have utility revenue in the future, and I mentioned that portion of the meter reserve came from actual charges. These kinds of projects, by the way, often result in an increase in revenue. The replacement of old meters that are always read low when they're old, they don't read high, can increase your revenue with just because that's what they should be doing. Finding services that aren't being billed tends to increase revenue, obviously. The couple of variables that we're not totally clear on, obviously, because we're going from a flat rate to a metered charge, we really don't know how the customers are going to react. If everybody suddenly conserves a whole lot of water, we could see a decline in revenue just because of that. We do know that, we think we know that the multifamily property owners are going to see a reduction in their cost. This is a big issue I know in Lodi, where they did a pretty exhaustive study on this, that they saw that because they were billing individual tenants a flat rate, and when you add up all those numbers of units at that flat rate, and you get a certain amount of revenue, you put the meter in, and now you're charging a fixed charge for the meter plus a commodity rate. In every case, mobile home parks, multifamily, apartment units, the revenue went down, which means that property owners saved, or whoever was paying the bill saved money. Galt doesn't quite have the same situation on the multifamily because Galt has always been billing the owner. And the reason for that is that in Lodi, they have electric system. So they have electric meters, and electric meters in apartments are always set up for each apartment passes its own electric meter. So they're building electric anyway, so they tacked on water and sewer. In Galt, since you don't have the electric side, you've never done that. You've always just billed the property owner. So they're not going to have that big debate about, well, who should be paying for this meter bill. It's still going to be the property owner in Galt. But we went back and took a look at a handful of apartments that we have metered and looked at their usage and compared, assuming all the other apartments would use the same amount of water per unit, and then apply our current metered rates to that, we did see a decrease in revenue. We still need to do some more work on that, but it wasn't a huge amount of money. It may wind up being in the $40,000 to $60,000 a year range, but that's what's fair. That's what we got to do, really. The residential side, though, we've also done some less precise calculations. Two independent people on staff did calculations on this, and our conclusion there is that that'll probably break even. But we'll have to see. So we do think we're going to wind up needing a rate study at some point, and I'll touch more on that later. So the other, I'm sorry. Coming with a meter charge. We would use the meter reserve, of course, for the folks who have already paid. And I should point out too that there's been some characterization that what was paid was a deposit, but we've made the assumption, and I think you would agree that if you paid what we charged for a meter back, whether it was in 1992 or 1998 or 2003, you've paid for your meter. We wouldn't go back and try to charge something extra because the cost of the meter is more now than it was when you paid for it. I mean, it's not your fault we waited this long. So we didn't go off in that tangent looking at that potential revenue source. It would require a Proposition 218 process on those properties. And there's the question of, well, how much are you going to charge? Would you charge the full cost of installation, putting in that meter box, all the the shut-off valves and all that stuff, or would you just charge for the meter? And I'll touch on that on the next slide. Two more slides. So option one, factors involved in that, there's this equity issue, or inequity, depending on your point of view. We've heard comments from the public that, well, hey, I paid for my meter. Those other folks should pay for theirs. Yeah, that's certainly a policy decision that you can make. We just wanted to point out that there really is no equity long-term in terms of development. New homes, new businesses, as you've heard, are paying all kinds of fees now that weren't in place back in 1990 or 1980 or in 1950. And one might argue that, gee, when I built my house in 1970, I did what you told me to do. I put in this kind of a service, and that's what was required. So why should I have to pay extra now just because the state law changed? We could go on and on about arguing that equity issue, and which is why you get the big bucks to decide these kind of policy issues. We did survey other utilities. There were in the state bill that passed this measure back in 2004. The legislative analysis that's done listed several cities as this would affect. So we went back to that and checked with all those cities to see what they did. And two of them, Lodi and Roseville, did charge individual customers to go back and do this retrofit. But the majority of them, listed on the slide, basically did it using their rates, and some of them got some grant funding. And we wanted to point out, too, back in the 90s, Galt put all those commercial meters at no charge for those property owners. So we've already got a disparity. We've charged new property owners per meter, but we basically gave them to the old ones. So if you wanted to follow past practice, then that would be a supporting measure for not charging. On the other hand, going with trying to impose a charge, there's a slightly more administrative time and costs involved, relatively minor. You got to go through the 218 process. We would suggest that we hold off until after we've at least done the audit so we know exactly who we're going to try to charge. As part of the 218 process is to notify the affected property owners, and you want to make sure you get them all. The process, do you charge a one-time fee? Do you do a payment plan? Those are details, but we've kind of roughed out a couple of alternatives there. Do you charge the full cost? As I mentioned, roughly $720 for a residence, or do you charge for the meter only? Again, our favorite city to the south is charging $300, although they are going back, I understand, and they're going to look at the larger size customers. So I mentioned before that I didn't say it, but the phase 2 people includes a number of apartment complexes and some mobile home parks. Those meters would be much larger, and they are more expensive, quite a bit more expensive. So we're assuming that if we're going to make a meter charge, regardless of whether it's full cost or just a portion of the cost, that it would be reflective of the meter size. Anyway, I started to say Lodi charged a flat $300, and they offered a payment plan. and they absorbed the cost of the service upgrade. Roseville did it a little bit differently. They had a rate surcharge for 10 years, and they had two categories: meter only or meter requiring a service upgrade, and they were different amounts. So you could do it either way. One thing we would not suggest doing is trying to figure out what it costs to serve each individual parcel. So yours may cost $725, and yours may cost $800. That's a huge nightmare, and so we were looking at trying to average those costs out over those broad categories.
Well, most of them would be characteristic. Either they've got a box or they don't have a box.
Yeah, but is there concrete in there or not?
Yeah.
Or is there going to be the prize shrub there that needs to be replaced? Or, I mean, there's. Lodi had a lot more issues that in some cases they were moving services from the backyard to the front yard.
Aren't most services in the older part of town in the back anyway?
In Lodi, a lot of them were. I don't think there's that many here that are that way.
No.
But frankly, going to a fixed network, it's okay if it's in the backyard.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to go back and read it. You know? So we did not assume moving service locations. So after distilling all that, we have a recommendation, but again, this is purely a policy decision that the council sees it differently. You know, please speak up. But we are suggesting that we adopt a flat charge based on the meter size, but we did not include the cost to modify the service. So it's in the $300 range. I mentioned there's some larger services that would be more. It's going to be a bit of work to come back and recommend a fee schedule. So again, we didn't want to go to all that trouble if you really don't want to do it that way. We are suggesting that we provide for a one-time payment or a bill surcharge, and roughly, if we had a $300 charge, it's around $890,000 that we would raise in revenue, and if you did it on a 3-year payment plan, it'd be $9 a month roughly. Didn't get us to give you a feel for what kind of the ballpark of the numbers would be. And we are suggesting that we pursue this after we get the service audit, so we know exactly what we're, who we'd be talking about. We have the final numbers. Number 3 has to do with duplexes. I do know that when I was working here as the interim director, there was an issue with at least one duplex where they had a problem with one tenant not paying, and the other tenant was at risk of being shut off, and you really can't shut off, you shut the whole thing off, basically. And so that's a problem. You end up having to lien the property, which is a big process. And so we're suggesting that we try to provide some kind of an incentive to duplex owners where it's relatively easy to separate the services. Most duplexes are built like a little mirror image. You got the plumbing on one side, this side, and it comes out, it ties together, one line goes to the street. Adding one extra pipe to separate it at the house and coming out to the meter is a relatively minor cost. Putting in a box big enough to hold 2 meters instead of a single box is not that much extra money. The cost of the meter, this would probably be a smaller meter, so it's not that much money. So to maybe meet the property owner halfway, and if we could have those 2 meters, it would make Vanessa's staff much happier. And really provide better service to the customers, because now you're billing each customer what they exactly need or have used, and you can, if they have an issue, you can turn them off separately. So we're suggesting that we offer that upgrade basically at no extra charge if the property owner is willing to do that plumbing work to go from the house to the meter.
There aren't that many duplexes in town anyway.
According to the billing records, there's 252.
That's about what yeah.
Again, the audit would pin this all down exactly. Number 4 was about implementation, and this is again one of these little variables we'd kind of like to get some direction on because it affects how we would plan everything out. The state law that mandated this whole business does provide for a 1-year grace period where you could, if you use it to do comparative billing. We don't get into a lot of detail about how you do that. Some places, I guess, have gone out and said every month they give you, here's your flat rate, here's what your meter bill would have been. Our system can't do that. That'd be a lot of extra work to do it on a monthly basis. I know in Lodi, they basically waited through the summer and then sent out a one-time notice that, okay, your usage for the last 6 months or whatever it was this, and your bill would have been this, but your flat rate was this. So they get an idea how, where they're at, and that, are they high, are they low, are they average, whatever. Which gets back to that, we mentioned a bit of questions amongst ourselves about whether there's really good value in trying to do that for an entire year. Really, the summer usage is the big deal. So if you gave somebody a few months of a couple of billing cycles of summer information, that would be the kind of the worst case. But is it really going to change behavior until somebody actually gets a bill and sees their, what it's costing them to use the water the way they're using it? I don't know. I haven't seen studies specifically on that issue. I've heard anecdotally from various people that when you switch from flat rate to metered rates, you see a dip in water usage, then it creeps back up. Overall, I've heard figures anywhere from 0 to 20% reduction in water use, but it all varies. So whether or not we do a comparative bill is really, again, kind of up to how you feel about that. It doesn't bother us, obviously, to not do it. But we are suggesting that we do some kind of a brief comparative bill one time. And we would have to do that, obviously, after the meters are in, so we know what the consumption has been. I'm going to talk in a minute about doing another rate study. We thought maybe we'd have the rate consultant do that as part of that work. So that's the fourth recommendation. Talked about finances already a bit, but kind of wanted to summarize a few things. We obviously don't have a financial plan, a complete financial plan ready for you because there's, again, all these variables are still kicking around out there. I wanted to point out, again, we talk about revenue versus rates. They really are two different things. Revenue is that total amount of money that the utility has to work with. And the rates is really how you slice that amongst the customers. The rate structures are a bit of science and a bit of art, developing those. The standard is to have, as you do now, you have a fixed charge for having the meter sit there, and then you have a commodity charge that's based on a certain X dollars for so many 100 cubic feet of water that you use. Actually, I think I have your rates right now. Your flat rate for a single family is $27.87. For a multifamily or mobile home less than 1,000 square feet, it's $20.86. Your metered rates for a 1-inch meter are $2.89 plus $1.19 per 100 cubic feet. And I honestly have forgotten whether the typical residence uses 20 units or 22. I think it's 22 units. If you do the math, that's about $29. So they're really close. The residential flat rate and the residential metered rate are pretty close, which is what kind of supports what I mentioned a little while ago, that in our previous looking at what's going to happen here, we're not too worried about seeing a big revenue decline from the residential customers, the single-family residential customers. But you've all heard the stories about, oh, we put in meters and we conserved water, now we got to raise the rates. I mean, that's how many times have you read that? We really would like to avoid that. And one of the ways you do that is you have a rate structure that captures more of your fixed costs in that fixed charge. I mentioned Galt's $2.89 for a 1-inch meter. When you do the math, that amounts to about 8% of your revenue. And the best management practices that are listed out there that are part of the state guidelines, it's not a law, by the way. I didn't. Somebody asked me, is it a state mandate to do that? No, it's not a mandate exactly. Their recommendations are that you recover 50% of your revenue from that fixed charge. Plus, you have a commodity rate that encourages conservation through either tiered rates or some kind of a of a of a financial incentive to use less water. Of course, you have to meld that with various constitutional requirements in California about cost of service and so forth. You can't just arbitrarily say, oh, we're going to charge $10 for that high water usage and $1 for the low water usage. You got to back that up with a rate study that has a cost of service element, because you can't charge more than the cost of service overall. But there's ways to do that, and there are people who know how to do that kind of stuff much better than I do, where you can meet all those goals and have a defensible rate that encourages conservation and still. The bottom line is that the water utility, the total revenue for the water utility is really based on what it costs to run the water utility. You can't charge for it. So it gets back to how do you slice up that pie amongst your customers. Oh, I mentioned the best management practices, and this is where some of the confusion is. I mentioned before about the water meters. There's penalties if you don't get the water meters installed. You can't get state funding for water and sewers and stuff like that. Another set of laws that are tied to the urban water management plan requirements that are calling for a 20% reduction in water use by 2020. And there's an interim goal in 2015, 10%. And that's all supposed to be analyzed and looked at in your urban water management plan. And the benchmark for the urban water management plan comes from state law. It says you need to look at these various best management practices. This kind of rate structure is one of those. So in your urban water management plan, you have to explain, are you meeting your conservation goals? And if not, why are you not implementing this kind of a rate structure to help achieve that goal? So it's not exactly a law that says you have to do a specific thing, but the law does say you have to look at it and be able to explain it. And those eventually get reviewed by the state and goes back to that eligibility for funding. So if we don't think your management plan is adequate, you can be barred from getting funding. So, a few other policy issues. This is, I know, come up elsewhere. Meter size. There have been concerns that people are right now. Frankly, if we are not metered, there's no pressure loss through a meter. We put a meter in. People are going to say, "Well, you've reduced the pressure on my sprinklers and so forth." The part of the work that Global has to do is go through and right size that meter based on the past usage or the customer type and so forth. And they have indicated that they'll make their estimate, and if there's a problem and it's proven that their usage is higher, they'll switch out that meter. The multifamily dwellings. I already talked about duplexes, and I did talk earlier a bit about triplexes and larger. That we would continue the current practice of billing the owner. And I mentioned the potential revenue decrease already. I know that was a big deal in Lodi, but again, it goes back to the electric meters and the difference that they were talking about changing from billing the tenant to the property owner. In Galt's case, there's no change. Customers, I've heard comments at the council meetings about, well, can I still read my meter? And the answer is yes, you can. But in addition to that, you would have access to online consumption data. A lot easier to go online and look at it than to go out in the dirt and lift that lid up and peer into the box and shoo the spiders away and things like that. So with all that, we have a preliminary plan of action just to kind of give you an idea about how we see things unfolding. August 2013, we're hoping to approve the contract. We need direction from you as to that's the direction we're going to go in. Assuming that's the case, we would get the meters done by July of 2014. Everything would be done. That's taking the schedule that Global had in their proposal and adding the time frame when they assumed it would be awarded to reflect current month. So in fall of 2013, we would look at doing our revenue and rate studies, and then I mentioned having them do the comparative thing. and then be able to implement everything in terms of actual uh, a comparative bill and start the meter billing in the fall of 2014. That's assuming we would start everybody at the same time who isn't already metered. The handful of metered customers, they won't see any change other than there's just a new meter now. They would have access to the data. So we don't see, obviously they continue the same. You could, in theory, start sending out metered bills as soon as everybody's metered, as each individual customer gets a meter installed. The implementation time for the meter installs is around 4 to 5 months. So it would be like a rolling thing going out. We didn't see any big value in doing that, although it should be fun. So that's kind of how we see it coming together. And here's some of our recommendations. I won't read them again. I'd be glad to answer questions.
Madam Mayor, I would suggest that the council take each one
Yeah,
individually, separately. They have each, different policy ramifications.
Okay. So is there any, well, we do have public comment, but he's not here.
If I could also, there are a couple of people from Global here if you have questions of Global directly.
Okay, Mr. Walters, are you around or out in the lobby?
We lost him at the recess. He may have gone home.
Yep. Okay, I guess we lost him. So shall we do you want to read the first item, and then we'll have, if council has any discussion on the first item, we'll go through each item. If council has discussion on any, we'll take discussion and then build on each one separate.
So the first one, finalize contract negotiations with Global Water Resources for the turnkey fixed network advanced metering infrastructure system and meter install retrofit project.
Okay, do I have any comment? Okay.
I
know that.
I wasn't on council when council started this, and I went back and looked at the reports from November and August of 12. And I hear what Mr. Prima is saying, and I don't disagree with a lot of what you have to say. My concern is that well, a number of concerns. One, the city had a schedule, and we were going to look at phasing this project in over a period of time up until the year 2026. We're doing this, 12 years in advance of what the required deadline is. And I have a concern to the extent that we are advancing something that was a state mandate, but we really don't have I don't see a good justification for expediting that time frame, which isn't here in this staff report. I think a bigger overall issue I have is a state mandate put on urban water suppliers who use the least amount of water in the state of California. I mean, we're talking maybe around 10% of all water usage in California, whereas agriculture and industry pretty much are unregulated to the extent that they don't have the conservation measures put on them like the cities do. So I have just a philosophical problem with going with this shift. And I have a further problem accelerating a program that I think should be left, pretty much at the local level. And I certainly encourage conservation of water, but I don't know that it should be in such a fashion or under a state mandate. I like the contract with Global. I think that they're probably the best provider. I think my position or desire would be to stay with the original implementation schedule of going with the first 3,000 in phase 1, which was the post 1990 meters or properties, to install those and then monitor the system, see what improvements can be made, and at some future point, which doesn't have to be determined today, or particularly in this evening, to meet that deadline of 2026. I hear what you're also saying about rates, and when you know the scare that once you go to meters, rates go up. Well, in fact, I think that is a good likelihood, to the degree that if you are highly successful in your conservation efforts, your maintenance and operation costs would remain the same or will probably increase as the number of customers increases. So the quantities that you charge on your per unit basis are going to be higher if there's less water used. So I mean, it's kind of an inverse relationship to usage in what you're going to pay as a rate. Now, I don't know of any studies. I don't have any studies to back that up, and I haven't seen any to the contrary. But just intuitively, it tells me that if you have a meter and you're going to be charged on a per unit basis, you're going to use less water, which is good. But I have a concern that we don't have any idea what these rates are going to be. We don't know we know what the flat rate is today, but we don't know what this base rate is. We don't know what the tiered rate's going to be in the future. And I think that's, you know, and there's nobody here tonight, and it really amazes me. But given the hour, we don't have more people here because this is probably one of the biggest items that will affect every citizen in this community, whether they realize it or not. And it's going to hit them right in the pocketbook. So I guess I would have rather seen this at just a special study session, you know, a single item, because I know Mr. Walters is very, you know, he's a great example. He's very interested in this, and he's not here because it's too late. I mean, those are my comments on the in terms of the overall contract. I agree with with Global Water as the preferred contractor, but I would like to see it phased in as was originally proposed. And my proposal would be to have staff come back with an alternative to that extent, showing what those costs would be or estimated costs would be if we went with what was and has been planned for over the last 10 years in terms of a phase-in program.
If I may, back in August when this recommendation was made and the council accepted it, I was, you know, finishing up 10 months as being the interim director, and one of the things that I found on the desk was this 2008 study, and it's like, oh, it calls for everything to be done in phase one and by 2010 deadline.
Sure.
And this was 2011.
That was for phase one. When you say everything to be done, that was for phase one.
Phase one was going to be done by 2010.
Correct.
And here it was 2012, and it was nowhere.
Right.
And there was no plan how to do the rest.
Right.
It was, and my impression was it was going to sit until 2025, and then we, oh, now what are we going to do?
Right.
And I really did, I still do believe that the community is better served by doing everything all at once. And that issue about, you know, divisiveness, I mean, again, you don't see it now because there's only a few hundred people metered. But when half the town is metered and half the town is not, and there's no plan to do the other half, I think it'll be an issue.
I'm not saying we shouldn't have a plan, because I think there should be an implementation schedule to go along with whatever the first phase is. But
okay, and so an implementation plan might be, okay, we're going to do so many a year. So now you've taken the roughly 3,000 services that need to be done, and maybe you do, let's say you do it over 10 years. So you're doing 300 a year, which means it's still more than city forces can do. You're going to be contracting that out and doing individual contracts with the costs of engineering, and because now you're talking just a hard bid type situation where you're going to be going out, mapping out all these parcels, and okay, we're going to do this area. Here's what needs to be done in each one of these. Frankly, your engineering costs will eat up quite a bit of cost. I mean, and I had some discussion with some other people about how much engineering costs these kinds of projects were, and it was staggering. Which is surprising because it's not that hard. There's no engineering per se. It's just organizing the contracts and putting all the information together so somebody can bid it on a hard bid basis. And it won't, I think in the long run, I'm sure in the long run, it really won't save you any money.
In looking all through this, I can't find, and maybe I missed it, was what under the state law, what did we have to have done by 2010? Because I haven't seen that in any of the reports.
Apologize. I thought that was covered in the August report from last year, but basically, the law says that you have to. The new law said. Oh, back up.
2004.
The law that was done in the 90s, 92 or whatever it was, said okay, every new service has to be metered.
Okay.
Didn't say you had to read them.
Right.
So in theory, everything since 92 has a meter. Well, we've taken the approach, well, they paid for it, so they in effect have it. We didn't put it in, but they have it. So my reading of it is that, and I think this is two other folks have looked at, is that when the 2004 law said starting in 2010, every meter that was put in since 92 has to be billed at a commodity rate. So it's basically all those folks who paid for their meter and it hasn't been put in, need to get a meter, it needs to be billed at a commodity rate.
And what is the number on that?
That's the cost?
No, the number. That's not the 900. Is that the?
No.
That's not the 900.
That's the 30.
That's 3,000.
Yeah.
Right. 3,346.
Okay.
Yeah.
About half the 10.
Richard, maybe you could go back to the slide that talks about why we're recommending doing the whole city versus just the phase one that was the original recommendation from HDR. And I think there's actually some things that were even missed in there that in some conversations with Mark Clarkson, maybe he'd be able to address it, because I think there's some additional cost savings that would accrue to the existing ratepayers by doing the city all at once. One of them being potential reduction of chemical costs, the ability to take some things offline. And Mark, I know you spoke to this previously, but assuming we get some reduction, some consumption reduction, then there's some significant cost savings for the entire utility by metering the entire town. Mark,
Mark, why don't you come on up? I think it's worth another few seconds of your time just to hear some of the major capital costs that we may be able to avoid if we can move forward rapidly with this.
Mayor, council, I want to put it on record. I'm against metering. I've said it from the beginning. I've said it for 30 years. I'm against water metering. Up until a point of about 10 years ago, I've spent a lot of my time in Nevada, and small communities had overtaxed their system, their water system. They needed new wells, new improvements, new items, and as I went into the system and I did an evaluation, and I've done them from everything from 100 homes to thousands and thousands of homes, the benefits are astronomical to the existing ratepayers going from a non-metered rate to a metered rate. Right now, just looking at, and I've done some detail looking at our consumption within the city, the people who are unmetered right now are paying a flat rate are using on the average 3 times more than the people who are on a metered rate. And you say, well, what's a big deal there? We're all paying the same amount of money. The person who's conserving has to pay for that additional electrical cost, the additional chemical cost, the additional O&M, and all of that stuff for the people who are not conserving. When you bring in a meter, now all of a sudden everybody's kind of at a same basis. But we can also start checking our systems. Where are leaks? Where are people? People who really want to conserve could have leaks in their irrigation line that they don't know about, and they would fix them if we could help them. We can't help them with no meters. It's like when we talk about doing half the town, you have a tank that's leaking, we're only going to fix half the tank. Why do you leave the rest of the tank leaking? Because that half of the town that is fixed, they're going to pay for all those additional costs. In the last year, we just put in a new well out there at Golden Heights. We've tried to run it a lot, because it has a lower chemical consumption. We were able to save about $80,000 this last year in chemical cost alone. Still at the higher rates, the higher flow rates and everything. If we could cut the flow rates, and I've done a little bit of estimate, and I'm not going to promise you anything here, but I think if people cut just 10 to 20%, we're not going to see any adjustment to our overall rates, because the chemical costs are beyond belief what we have with our arsenic system. We also, by eliminating this overuse, it's not a usage that people, people watering their lawns, it's a great thing to have. It truly is. We don't want things, well, the building guy isn't here, going brown because people can't pay the water bill. I never see that happening, and I've never seen that happening in any of the places that I've been involved in. I've been involved with dozens and dozens of places of meters being put in. People change their style a little bit. They become a little bit more conservative, and when their meter's spinning and they're not using it, they're calling somebody and trying to figure out what's going on. We can also fix the leaks that we don't know about that's out in our system. We can't figure out where the leaks are because we don't know where everything's going. This is an asset to the city that especially the age of some of our facilities, an asset that is absolutely needed, and I have seen it over and over again. I've seen where systems were about to put in $2 and $3 million wells, and you go out and you throw in some meters, and everybody's paying the same rate, and now the well doesn't have to happen for who knows how many years, because now the infrastructure is able to support the existing people there. Of course, future development's going to pay for whatever they need, but right now we're looking at adding wells and doing additional system improvements just because of the load that we have on our system. And going back to the thing, we have customers out there, and the unmetered customers are 3 times over what a metered customer is. And,
how do you know that?
Because I've broken it. I've taken the production. I've looked at all our production logs over the last 2 years. I've taken the commercial part out because all the commercial's metered. I've looked at the residential, the 500 or so units that are metered, and then I count that water. I don't account all of it because I figure we might have 10 to 20% loss in our system. We don't know. We can't find it yet. I mean, if it does exist. Then I just say, okay, doing some, voodoo magic, that should be for the people who are unmetered.
So,
and then you divide that by how many residentials there are, and you go, my gosh, it is beyond belief. Their average metered customers using about 12 to 15,000 gallons a month, average unmetered in the 40,000 range.
so you're able to take a well in an area and see how much water goes out.
Yeah, we meter our wells. Yeah, our supply.
To the residents, and that's how you can come up with a statement that you
just
made.
backtrack. Yes, and it's in the savings. If we just cut 20% of our usage, from the residences who are not metered, if we just see a 20% reduction, you're not gonna see any rate changes are not going to change that much. Of course, there'll be some concern. It's up to what happens here. If you want to have tiers that push conservation, it can be done. You can adjust your rate cases to how the city council wants it to be. As long as you got the math and everything supporting it.
Let me ask you this, and I think I've heard it before. Do you see that we're ever going to have to, within reason, worry about our ability to supply water to this community that does plan to grow some in the future?
The data that I've seen from the groundwater studies that are around here and that the state has been collecting from the farm areas, there is a deficit happening in Galt. And the deficit's only here in the South County. It's not happening in other parts of the ag areas, but it is happening right here in Galt. And it shows a depression on the system. I've never tried to calculate how do we reverse that decline, but if we're pumping a certain amount of water right now, and we can reduce that consumption by 20%, that's just what can stay in the ground, that the chemicals can stay back at the chemical companies, the electricity can stay back with SMUD, and we don't have to use it, and maybe we'll use it in the future,
The water that we pump, it doesn't just come from within our own boundaries. I mean, isn't it affected by what's going on as far as pumping outside of Galt, agriculture, areas to the north of us. Doesn't that affect our water supply?
Yeah, to a degree. The ag lands areas in the South County, because there's a South County water district, and we use probably about 5% of all the use in the South County area. So we're a small amount, but we're the only ones showing a depression. And yes, all of the stuff happening out there can affect us, but basically what we're creating, we're affecting ourselves. You know, and recharge does happen from other areas, but the different people that I've talked to and the geotech people, they're not seeing it out in the ag wells. We are seeing it in the city here. So,
If I may add, while it's not at a critical level today, you asked, will we ever? Ever's a long time, and we need to be good stewards of the precious commodities we have. Maybe in a nutshell, what I would summarize, Kurt, I'm going to echo your sentiment and Mark's, and that is, I don't like mandates. Sometimes one size doesn't fit all, and why should we do things? What we're essentially recommending, and the council approved in August that we do the whole city, and so we went out with an RFP to look at that. But what we're recommending, I truly believe, in the last 11 months of looking at this, we're basically making lemonade. They gave us some lemons, these mandates and things that may or may not make sense, but we're trying to be proactive and at least make something good out of that. And A, will save meter reading costs. B, all of the things that Mark just said I think are very true, and adding to what Richard said, one thing he didn't mention is, and all that water isn't going down the drains. Now, not all of it goes down the drain, but you incrementally save money on your sewer side as well, all the operating and treating and all the regulatory requirements to meet that. And we've presented to you last month, some major study session items on costs that we're facing that we can defer or avoid with every time we reduce water on the production side, some of that water is not going down the drain. So we're sort of looking at a sort of a win-win-win. So the sooner you start conserving, the sooner you start saving, the sooner you start deferring costs. And frankly, just the found revenue and the avoided costs of meter reading begin to pay for this and can be an offset against the cost to pay for it can be offset about the savings that we'll achieve going forward. And so we're basically recommending that you stick with the council's decision in last August, and that we get an economy of scale in the contract. If we want to go back and revisit that, we're certainly willing to do that if that's the council's pleasure. But we almost have to go back out and start over the RFP because we just took half of the project out, that the prices were based on that economy of scale. And I'm sure Global would want to revisit that if we're only going to do half the project. So those are just some sort of downsides to that. And so I just offer those thoughts.
And I should apologize. I didn't spend much time on that, reducing operating costs, and I know Mark was on vacation for a while when I was getting this all put together, and we didn't get together on it, but we have had those conversations. Those are real things.
Well, I think that personally for me, the one word that's really important is conservation, because I really think water is a precious commodity, and it's one we've got to really keep an eye on. So saying that the unmetered people are using 3 times more water than the metered is kind of shocking to me. And
you don't see much gutter flooding in the metered areas.
Right. I think, you need to pay your dues if you're going to.
One of the things that the project would include is the ability to essentially instantaneously look at how much water we're putting into the system and how much water is going through all the retail meters.
Yeah.
So that question Mark mentioned, he assumed 10 to 20% losses in the system. You'll know that exactly. Right. And then if it's a high number, you start looking at the rest of the distribution system. How can we fix our leaks? But if it's showing not much, then you know it's all customer side.
Right. Any other observations, questions, comments? Council? So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay, call for the vote, please.
This is for the first item.
For the first item.
Should I read it again?
Let's have Liz read it again then.
This is to finalize contract negotiations with Global Water Resources for the turnkey fixed network advanced metering infrastructure system and meter install retrofit project.
Okay, do I have,
See that 10 times fast.
did I have a motion?
I made the
Yeah,
motion.
you have a
Okay.
motion.
Okay, call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
No for the reasons stated.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Okay, now could you read the second one for us, please, Liz?
Second one. Proceed with planning to charge unmetered customers for the cost of a new meter, excluding those that have already paid for their meter.
Okay, any discussion, council? Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion accept.
Do I have a second? Call for the vote, please, Liz.
Discussion. This
Oh.
is for the flat rate, correct?
Right.
Because this doesn't, it doesn't, in the motion, doesn't say flat rate.
This was for the $300, right? Correct?
Yes, well, that's what I'm trying to get at. Motion says planning for a charge of unmetered.
Yes,
This
I
must
think
be a-
this got edited.
yeah, something happened here. Go with the printed recommendation in your staff report. Somehow our slide has an oops here.
Put that in.
The intent was to charge a fixed amount based on the meter size for those customers who have not paid for a meter.
Yeah, the flat rate here is more of a paraphrase that we would be directed to plan and develop a proposed rate for. We're recommending the meter
The
cost.
estimated $300.
Right, sort of a
Right.
flat average
That's
cost.
what I wanted to
Not
clarify.
actually approving the rate tonight.
No, but
Yeah.
that was.
We'll
okay,
come
that
back
was
with the
intent.
details, but, I mean, because it affects the financing of the project, obviously, if we're going to have it, you know.
Okay, we did have a,
We have a motion and a second.
okay, call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Could you read number 3, please, Liz?
Number 3, develop an incentive program for duplex owners who elect to modify their on-site plumbing.
Okay, any discussion, council members? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call for the vote, please, Liz.
Sorry. Vice Mayor Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. And last but not least, Liz, number 4, please.
Develop an implementation schedule that provides for a comparative bill notice for newly metered customers prior to charging based on meter readings.
I have some discussion on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that we might look at doing this over a summer, as far as comparing and giving the information to the customer. I think that's going to be the heaviest use. Should be a good sample. And what I see happening to the finance department, if we go over a long period of time, I think it's going to be very expensive. So that would be my suggestion.
That actually works well with our implementation schedule, if I may, that by the time we get the contract executed and get our surveys done and get a notice to proceed to begin with work, it'll probably be in the next spring before we start to get a majority of the meters installed. And that'll give us then, 2 or 3 months of summer, early fall to put out comparative information. We would actually then begin to implement billing in the fall, early winter, when their actual usage will be coming down. But it will give them the time to look at, what's sort of my worst case billing before I'm actually getting stuck with that bill. And, I need to change my sprinklers out to drip and my planters and things, or maybe I need to find that leaking toilet, or maybe I need to figure out what I'm doing, what I can do differently. And we would be doing a major outreach process as part of that billing, comparative billing process to tell people, here's things to look for if the usage is high. But it will give a chance to not adjust to sticker shock, but actually adjust their behavior to avoid sticker shock.
And maybe even think about turning them off in the winter when it's raining.
Yeah.
Well,
Sounds like a good
Yeah.
idea.
We do find behavior changes when they're paying a commodity rate.
So what kind of a motion do you need on that, number 4?
Do you need to
based on doing, just going over a
We're,
summer.
we're looking for your concurrence to do a
Based
short
on
comparative
summer meter
billing
reading.
prior to implementing actual metered rates.
You can add the caveat that to have some summer months included in the comparative billing
Right.
Okay.
cycle.
That would be my motion.
Including summer months. Or compare. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
No, how are we going to read, what's it going to say now?
Develop an implementation schedule that provides for a comparative bill notice, including summer months for newly metered customers
okay.
prior to charging based on meter readings.
Okay.
Correct.
Second.
Okay. Okay.
Did we get a motion? I'm sorry.
Barbara.
I made that motion to include the summer months.
Yeah, she's got that. That's part of the motion.
Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Okay, now we're going to adjourn the Galt City Council and convene to the Galt Successor Agency. Roll call, please.
Board Member Singleton?
Here.
Payne?
Aye. I'm here.
Here.
Cruz?
Here.
Powers?
Here. Any public comment?
I have no speakership.
Okay, information consent calendar. Could you read the two, please?
We have two items. The first, the approval of the minutes of the meeting of June 4th, 2013. And the second one, approval of the successor agency warrants.
Move to accept consent.
Second.
Call for the vote, please.
Board Member Singleton?
Aye.
Payne?
Aye.
Campion?
Aye.
Cruz?
Aye.
Powers?
Aye. Okay, we're going to adjourn the Galt Successor Agency and reconvene to the Galt City Council. City
Okay.
Clerk's report.
Briefly, in the past, council has attended the neighborhood gatherings for National Night Out, which annually falls on the first Tuesday in August. So staff is recommending that council, due to some planning notices, and also because of SAC Metro Cable's schedule, it's recommended that council move their meeting to Wednesday, August 7th. So move the Tuesday meeting, Tuesday, August 6th, to Wednesday, August 7th.
Okay,
I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? I second. Call for the vote.
We're having
Vice Mayor Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Any comments by staff? No? Okay, we're winding down here. Comments by City Council member or future agenda items. I'll start to my left with Councilmember Payne.
Just mentioned that I attended the first 5 advisory committee meeting, and they have a program they're funding to provide car seats with the provision that you're going to take your child to the dentist. And in order to get one of these, you would go to your local family resource. And for Galt, I believe that would be Valley High Family Resource on Franklin Boulevard, but I do have the addresses. The other thing they reported on was something I didn't know. I know, Chief, you knew about it, but there's some surprising rules about the car seat. Number one, you're not supposed to use a used one. You're not supposed to use a used one because it could have been in an accident and damaged. Also, they have an expiration date on the bottom of them, which I didn't know that was a fact either, but it is. Quickly, children under the age of 8 must be secured in a car seat or a booster seat in the back seat. Children under the age of 8 who are 4'9" or taller may be secured by a safety belt in the back seat. Children who are 8 years and over shall be properly secured in an appropriate child passenger restraint system or safety belt. Passengers who are 16 years of age and over are subject to the mandatory seatbelt law. Just sharing that with you. So, if you're going to take your baby to the dentist, you can get a free car seat.
Wow. Okay. Vice Mayor Singleton?
shocked you were coming to me. I just want to thank all the citizens who showed up for 4th of July. What a great time. It was a great evening, and I heard no complaints from anybody. Also, I'd like to bring back to council about spending some of my discretionary funds, and I'll give more details to that when we bring it back to our next council meeting.
I need to do that too.
Discretionary?
Yes.
Councilmember Campion?
He wants to go home.
Oh.
No, no, I'm just going to make a pitch for the Historical Society. They have the Snip a Snap,
Sip.
Sip and
Not
Snap.
snip,
I can't even
sip.
say it. I'm too tired. July 27th, Saturday, I believe. So everybody's invited to come.
Councilmember Cruz?
I just want to again say thank you to everybody involved in the 4th of July. I'm sorry, the industrial. See, I'm contagious. Independence Day celebration. Armando, I can't say enough about the fireworks you guys did out there. I don't think you can top it next year, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, it went for a full 18 minutes, by the way. I can't.
And the excitement of it wasn't that. The excitement was the illegals who set up the fire behind us.
Okay, my turn. I do want to, first of all, say that this is our 3rd year for the Independence Day parade, for Independence Day, and it just gets better and better. And I think we really have to thank Armando and his staff for it, because we really don't have to do much work, and he's got it down pat for everything we need to do. The 5K run and the parade was awesome this year. We don't have to add anything else. It was a great full day, even though the heat was a little not on our side, but it was just a great day, and it made me really proud to be here in Galt. And I got nothing like Councilmember Singleton, Vice Mayor Singleton said. I just got people ranting and raving for days about what a fun time it was. So thanks really again to our committee and to Armando for always spearheading it, though we like to think we're in charge. Ha! Anyway.
I think Mo said something about you wanted to make the parade longer next year or something like that.
Don't forget Brenda.
You don't think so? Oh.
Brenda Renfro.
And in case nobody knows, Brenda Renfro did took charge of the parade, and she did a wonderful job. It was her first year of doing it. We had help from everybody after that.
We had a great committee. So we did not just a second.
No, I'm not considering her. I'm just talking about the parade part.
Yeah, everybody was
Everybody helped
great.
out. Thank you.
Thank you.